Everyone should be checked in that is present. Next thing is, if we'd all stand, remove your hat and for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good and gracious Creator, in this National Women's Month, we thank you for the unprecedented development in the field of education for girls and women all over the world. We also give thanks as very few women today face death or complications in childbirth. We are indeed blessed that we can find women of such great courage and initiative around us, women whose efforts are not only emerging as entrepreneurs and political office holders, but also having a greater say over the way monies are being utilized within their homes. We also know how many girls and women still have to face challenges in society today in order to get an equal say in their community or in household decision-making. Thank you for all the cherished women in our lives and in our histories, mothers, wives, sisters, daughters, friends, and neighbors. May women across the globe continue to be empowered by hope, love, and dignity. Amen.
Supervisor Albrecht for tonight's agenda. Motion made and seconded to adopt tonight's agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Carried. Public comment. This time will be allowed for persons present to express opinions on any resolution or ordinance that appears on the agenda, as well as any matter over which this body has jurisdiction. This is a 2-minute time that you will have pursuant to 6.4, 8.1, and 10.1 of the 2022 and 2024 rules. So anyone wishing to speak before the board this evening, come forward. State your name and address, please.
Good evening. I'm Neenah Police Chief Aaron Olson, 2111 Marathon Avenue, City of Neenah. Earlier today, I emailed everyone here at the board about the barricades that were denied last week, which is your right, but I just want to point out some things that were said that were not accurate. On January 17th, the Spirit Fund Committee unanimously approved this to go forward, because at that time we vetted the whole process. Everyone understood the why, and last week when I was here, we were given 2 minutes, and obviously can't give you the full information in 2 minutes. Mr. Bender said that we can use a dump truck full of gravel. We can't do that anymore. Our insurance company does not allow that. If that dump truck is hit by a vehicle on purpose or an accident or a medical emergency, we do not get reimbursed for that vehicle. And that could take 2 to 3 years for us to get that vehicle back. So that's a thing of the past. So that's number one. We can't use vehicles other than what they're intended for. We can't use a fire truck to block roads anymore for parades. Next, it was said that we live in a bubble. We can't live in a bubble. I agree, we can't live in a bubble, but it's our job as police to do the best we can to protect people. And we go through more than you can imagine to protect people at parades and events, more than you'll know and more than we put in the public. This is another layer to protect people. We don't show up for events and cross our fingers and hope that nothing bad happens, okay? It's not our job. Our job is to protect people, and I'm pretty passionate about it. That's my job, okay? Throwing up our hands and saying, well, hope to God nothing happens, that is the wrong answer, okay? It was also said that in a couple of years, we just basically will become lazy and not use these anymore. That's insulting. We're professionals. We protect our community. We're not just going to buy $300,000 worth of barricades and say, oh, we're just too lazy to put these out today. No, these will be used for decades, okay? So I don't have much time. Please read the email if you haven't. It describes it a little bit more. Call me, email me, come to the police department, I'll come to you, we'll talk more. Okay? Please reconsider this and vote yes when this goes to the next business meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak before the board this evening?
Good evening. Joel Rasmussen, 3550 Caden Court, Oshkosh. I'm here representing the town of Algoma. I'm the town of Algoma chairman, and I'm speaking on resolution 31403-2024, which happens to be, I believe, your only resolution tonight. And that's for contributing $387,500 from the Spirit Fund towards the town's part of an upcoming newly built roundabout at 21 and Leonards Point Road. I've been following this process, this ARPA process, from the beginning, and I've always been under the opinion of this whole thing that this money should go to projects that benefit the most people and have the most impact on the most people. This project does just that. As the write-up for this in your packets well explained, this roundabout is much needed for safety and future development. Yes, it is a state project, but there is no access to the south for about 200 acres of landlocked property. Town of Algoma has to pay for the south leg of that new roundabout at an estimated cost of $750,000. Believe me, this is a huge expense for a township. Getting half of this paid for means a lot to us. Again, although it is a state project, the town of Algoma has been campaigning and pushing for years to get this intersection be improved for the safety aspect of it. A great many motorists will be safer because of it. This project is also a huge benefit to more than just the town of Algoma for economic development. Once this is opened up, we have a developer ready to go when this land gets open. This area will be mixed development with commercial property along Highway 21 and mixed housing beyond that. There are some unbuildable wetland areas which hopefully will be used for parkland. These things will be a benefit to the whole county in tax revenues and help address the housing shortage that we all know we have. I'd also like to say that although this has been listed as a 2027 project, we've heard that things have been moving along quite nicely and possibly might be built in 2026. This would coincide with the town's reconstruction of Leonards Point Road, and if any of you are familiar with that, you'd know that is way overdue. This has been overdue because of financial constraints. We would have to bond for that. We will be bonding for that, and we would also have to bond for the roundabout. It's a lot to do on 1 year. So anyways, I thank you for listening, and I would encourage you all, please vote yes for this important project. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to come forward?
Good evening. Bruce Abraham, 1911 Amy Jo Drive, Oshkosh, town of Algoma. I sent out an email to the Board of Supervisors this morning, an update summary on the activity as far as the Oshkosh Pickleball Club's proposal request for ARPA funds for 8 pickleball court complex at the Winnebago County Community Park. If anybody did not get that email, I already gave Doug Nelson his because his email always kicks back. But I have some hard copies here if anybody would like them. Anybody? I did not include any of the data or benefits because I've already spoke to that. But if anybody would like them, I'd be glad to email them this evening or tomorrow. Would anybody like what the benefits are, just as a review, a reminder? Anybody want those? No? Yes? Okay. I will do that. As a reminder also, there was an approach change for this project, the ARPA fund request, in mid-July. Initially, we submitted a request for we did an application for ARPA funds by way first of a letter in May 14th, and then actually went online and did it in August. But it was requested by the county executive that we wait until Adam Brees did his corp proposal, as well as his master plan for the Winnebago County Community Park. So we followed that guideline, and so everything is in there today. The pickleball courts are part of the $3.8 million ask, and the pickleball courts are $400 million of that. which is only 1.5% of the total ARPA funds that were allocated to Winnebago County. If anybody's familiar with Menominee Park tennis courts, now tennis and pickleball courts, those have been there for decades, probably upwards of 80 years.
You'll have to wrap it up, sir.
Okay, if it's done right, this will be a benefit to the residents of Winnebago County for many, many decades going forward. In addition, we are continuing to try to find a benefactor donors for additional funds to help offset some of the costs. So the Oshkosh Pickleball Club will continue to do that. Thank you, and I urge everybody to please vote yes for this proposal when it comes in front of you, I guess in 2 weeks. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else at this time wishing to come forward? Anyone else? Anyone else in the back wishing to come forward? Not, is there anyone on Zoom? Okay, that part is closed. Communication, petitions, memorial, accounts, accommodations.
Good evening, everyone. We have a resolution from Douglas County in regards to enhanced wake regulations that will be referred to the Legislative Committee. And then this afternoon, Dr. Topol sent me an email and asked me to read it to everyone. It is with sadness that I have to relay that Mark Quam, my predecessor here at Human Services, has passed away unexpectedly. Mark was director from 2003 to 2007. He was a fun-loving, caring individual as well as a talented director. He is responsible in part for my being here since he had many great things to say about our department. Plans for a celebration of life have not yet been finalized, but I will be passing them on to you in case you knew him and are interested in attending. Our thoughts and prayers go out to his family. Dr. Topol. That's it.
Thank you. Reports from committee, commissions, and boards. Excuse me. There is no reports, so we'll move right on to county executives report appointments.
We have a request from the Fox Valley Workforce Development Board to change the appointment from Rob Kleiman of the Oshkosh Chamber to Shannon Seaman of the Oshkosh Chamber. Typically, the Workforce Development Board, there's federal requirements on who gets appointment and their different expertises. And so we put the CEO's letter in the packet to kind of explain where he was coming from. And so at his request, the county executive is appointing Shannon Seaman, subject to your confirmation.
Do I have a motion to accept? Is there a second? Second. Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Carried. Next is the Fox Valley Workforce Development Board.
You forgot your county board chairman's report.
Mine's down below that, the way you got it.
No, there was a county executive appointment, and then county board chairman. That's yours.
Well, what's this here?
That's his appointment.
Okay, the only thing that I really have to report tonight is Supervisor Ernst and Supervisor Robinson is excused this evening. We do have some other important resolutions and things coming up, so we'll keep right on moving along. Excuse me. Presentation, introduction to the Civic Plus Agenda Management, County Clerk's Office.
So, is that what the? Good evening, everyone. I have the pleasure to introduce to you our new Civic Plus Agenda Management program. Over the course of the last year, our office has been working with the County Executive's Office, Corporation Counsel, and others to improve the agenda process. The purpose of this presentation is to introduce you to the changes that you might be seeing. We are trying our best to keep agendas and packets the way we have always done it. However, there are times when that is not possible. I have asked Cassie and Ethan to assist in this presentation as they have worked the most on implementation as I work on the elections. What is agenda and meeting management? The key features are agenda creation and collaboration, integrated website and codification, enhanced minute taking and management, personal and secure board portal, live streaming and on-demand video, public-facing portal, and streamlined publishing. First, what is agenda management? You can read from Civic Plus's website the description of their product. For us, I choose this product because of the ease of the agenda creation and collaboration, integration with the website, faster and enhanced minute taking, a better county board portal for packets and voting, better video management and potential live streaming, and a much improved public experience. With that, I will let Cassie and Ethan complete the rest of this presentation.
You drive. Okay, so the first, Cassie and I split these slides today. So the first, what did we hear? We have it divided in two sections. From board members, we've heard that there's no easy way to receive the packet electronically. We heard that the minutes are not posted timely. We heard historical committee information deletes after a year off the website. We heard that if you are getting your packet electronically or want to view it electronically, you almost need two devices so that you can vote on one device and view your packet on another device. We heard that sometimes it's hard to find committee and board meetings on the website. We heard that those of you who want to see these presentations, it's hard for you to see in the pack. And we heard that the packets potentially need more information. From the staff and public, we heard that it's hard and cumbersome to post the packets and the agendas to the website. The printing process is money and labor intensive. It's difficult for different departments when they're working together on agenda preparation to collaborate and share those documents. It's a manual process to do a lot of staff to create agendas. Items were in folders or emailed, making it difficult to quickly to know if everything was ready to go in the agenda, and documents presented at committee are not available online. So that's what we heard as we developed the plan for the process. And we went through the purchasing process. So a budget was included in the 23 budget. We put out an RFP in early 23, and we only received one response. Rather than pick the one response, we went out for a second RFP, and we received a handful of responses. At that time, we took the entire summer of 2023 to review, demo, understand 4 finalists. And we demoed them for hours. We did what's called sandbox demos, meaning we actually controlled the sites to try to find the best process for staff, and then the best board and public portal, which you'll see a little bit today. In the end, the county clerk made the decision. She chose Civic Plus due to features and price. It wasn't the cheapest, and it wasn't the most expensive. Civic Plus then, we signed a contract, Civic Plus scheduled implementation, and we began in December. And key clerk's office and other staff, Cassie and I, have been learning and configuring the sites. And you've probably already seen some changes because we've been using the system for the packets for county board, for PNF, JPS, land conservation, and the ARPA commission have all been created and printed out of Civic Plus. I think that's Cassie's turn.
So here's a couple of examples created and generated in Civic Plus. On the left side is a County Board of Supervisors business meeting, and on the right, Personnel and Finance Committee meeting. As you can see, both of the agendas look the same, and these are kind of standardized. There are several commissions, and boards that we notice and publish, and many times the language on each agenda varies from one to another. With Civic Plus, the items and sections will share the same language. As you can see in the examples shown, the verbiage is the same language used, but the specific committee, commission, or board is populated in from what has been entered in specific fields when creating the agenda. The quorum and bad key language on the bottom of the agendas will be standardized. The agendas have been built to be ADA compliant, so the style and the size of the font meet the ADA compliancy requirements.
So this, if you can vision the current, how we post agendas, this is what the new public portal looks like. So you'll have the calendar on the left. If you scroll up, those will be meetings in the past. If you scroll down, those will be future meetings. This obviously is not branded for Winnebago County. It's not blue. It doesn't have our logo. But we could launch this today. We are testing that. The agenda portion will look something like this. This is actually your agenda tonight in the new portal. What you'll see, is there a laser on this? No. Oh, I did the wrong button. Now I got it back. So on the left-hand side, you'll see that that's the agenda item and it's bookmarked. And then you can get to each, without leaving and downloading a new document, you can get to each agenda item attachment. On the left, you'll see real small on your, well, it's probably better on your slides than mine. You'll see that on the far left, there's kind of different things. There's the meeting agenda, there's the meeting files, so you can share the agenda, email, different things. Minutes will be posted there when they're there. Video will be posted there when it's ready. And I think there's one more option that will go there once it's ready. So this is how the agenda in the package will be available for the public. Right now, you'll notice the PDFs are already bookmarked. So if you download the whole PDF, it's bookmarked for you to quickly go through it. Live streaming is a possibility. What happens in that case is actually the video will show in this corner of this thing as they have it on the screen. So people can go in, live stream, and they can see all the documents. If a document comes after the agenda has been posted and printed, we can put it in here. So this presentation tonight, we could have uploaded this and the public could be going through it as we're talking about it, so that there's access for that as well. And so this really, we found this public portal to be one of the more user-friendly of the ones that we looked at. So I think Cassie has a new board portal.
So there is a new board portal that is coming as well. We haven't had a chance to test this portion of the software yet, but as you can see on the bottom toolbar, you will have the ability to see all the agendas, the minutes, the media, and you can also make private notes. There will be an opportunity to vote from the same portal. For example, if you are viewing a specific agenda item and it's not the current one that's being discussed on the floor, and all of a sudden it's time to vote, a window would pop up and let you vote at that same time, even though you're looking and reviewing another item. Again, we haven't had a chance to test this. This portal will be available on any device, so if you are at home and prefer to use your home computer versus your iPad, you will be able to do so. There is some meetings coming for training in the near future, so we will invite you.
So the question everybody asks is, what is this going to cost or save? The contract for 4 years, if we renew it, it's an evergreen. We did lock in the same price for 4 years without any uppers at $24,459. We have done some very conservative estimates based on those who have been using it. We think 25 to 40 hours a month will be saved in the county clerk's office because of printing and collating and different things like that, which is about $8,000 to $14,000 savings in opportunity costs based on their Administrative Associate 3. We think 10 to 20 hours of work per month for Corp Counsel staff, which is about $4,000 to $8,000 in opportunity cost savings annually. And depending on the department and how involved they are in the agenda process, if they're completely involved, they do the agendas themselves, mail the packets, Land and Water, Parkview, Board of Health, Human Services Board. Those departments we think will save 5 to 10 hours per department per month, depending on how involved they are. Our goal is to make this very easy for you to request electronic packets, which means we can give you more information with less printing. Right now, the county board budget's about $11,500 for printing and mailing. That's just board packets and just committee packets, P&F, TPS, and a couple others that the clerk's office sends. If the department sends it out, that's in their budget. Parkview, Land and Water, Human Services, there's additional printing and mailing costs in those budgets. And then the county board also budgets $4,500 for just your voting software, which will be made, this will replace. So in total, the old process cost the county about $15,000, and this is about $24,000. With the opportunity cost savings, the actual printing and postage savings potential, we think there's clearly a savings overall to the county.
So what's next? We need to configure 37 plus committees, boards, and commissions. We need to do templates for the agendas, the item reports, and the minute templates. We have to configure and train 85 plus staff users, configure and train 36 board supervisors, configure and train 50 plus citizen commission board members, and we hope to launch this officially for use in the new county board term beginning April 16th. The videos, the streaming, and historical information will probably come shortly thereafter. That's it.
Supervisor Flom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm encouraged to see this. One of the biggest gripes that I get from my constituents is about accessibility for county board documents on the website. A lot of constituents get pretty frustrated and lost in the process. That's no knock on the staff at all. That's just the fact that the website can be a little bit cumbersome to navigate. And so having this in a more streamlined fashion is something that I very much appreciate and I'm hopeful for. So I will be relaying that to them, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Supervisor Hens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also want to echo what Jacob said. This is definitely a step forward going ahead. I know you said this is replacing open meeting, and I didn't hear anything or see anything on there about the requests to speak and motion and second and those things. I mean, I know that's coming down the road. I was just going to get a little bit of info on that, please.
We wrapped that into the voting thing. So we considered motions, seconds, requests to speak, all part of voting. So that'll all be in the board portal that you get. We've only looked at the board portal slides as far as you've seen. So we actually, just today, I think, Julie, you sent an email saying we were uploading all the county board members. We had to do that so we can start testing that functionality. Hopefully we didn't overpromise the functionality, but that's what took us quite a bit of time in the review and the sandbox, was to make sure that requests to speak, things like that, will remain. The one thing that none of the new systems could do is control microphones, so we're working through that. Open meetings couldn't do all of this other stuff, which is why we made the decision to change.
Thank you.
Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the bottom line where it says, total county board budget for old process about $15,000, and this contract is going to be $24,500. So are we comparing 15,000, is that a month, or is that, is that annual? Because 15,000 sounds like a lot less than 24.
Yeah, the current county board budget is $15,000. The new is
$15,000, how often?
a year.
A year.
A year.
And so instead of spending 15,000, we're going to spend 24,000 to do this. How is that a savings?
Yeah, the opportunity costs on the lines above. So when staff is saving 20 or 40 hours a month in the county clerk's office and other staff in the collaboration, they can work on other things and improve different things for their departments. And so it's an opportunity cost savings, it's a efficiency of staff time, not necessarily a monetary savings.
So the total county board budget for the old process is not 15,000, because you didn't add in
That's true.
the clerk stuff and the corporation council and the department of depending on agendas, that you didn't, 15,000 is not right, correct?
I did not add labor. I only tried to look at, here's what we spend on printing in our program, here's what we spend on the new program, excluding printing. I just tried to give as much information as I could on, here's the costs, here's the line items available. We'll have a bigger cost analysis once it's implemented on did it save us money, is it costing us money, and what's the opportunity and the efficiency costs.
Okay.
Supervisor Ellenberger.
Thank you, Chairman. The opportunity cost for me was a huge deal when I first got on and I saw the cost of all this, and I asked the county clerk's office, you know, how much time are you spending a month preparing these documents? I mean, that's 25 to 40 hours just at a county clerk, 10 to 20 just for corporation counsel. I mean, that's like a 1.5 job a month. I mean, and then I'm thinking in my head, okay, then those people can actually do other jobs and free up their time to actually do what the, you know, something a little bit more important than just mailing our stuff to us. So for me, this is a no-brainer. This is like extremely exciting, and I hope I get reelected so that I can use this. Because I'm looking forward to this, because I'm one of the people who don't get a packet delivered to me because I don't see the sense in it, because we have this iPad and I just kind of fumble my way through it a lot of times. Sometimes I have two computers going on because of the inefficiency of going back and forth, of looking at the agenda and being able to vote. So I hope this encourages others, once we do get this, to not get the board packet sent to them, you know, save a tree or what have you, and then try to figure this out, because this is very exciting. I thank you so much for putting in the work on doing this. Thank you.
Supervisor Swan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So are you saying that on April 16th, we will no longer be getting paper copies? You're not. We have the choice of it? Okay. Will you need to toggle back and forth? You're getting rid of open meeting software, so is this going to be menu driven at the bottom where you'll be able to toggle between documents?
Yeah, I did take a screenshot of that. I didn't take a screenshot of that. But yeah, you'll be able to toggle between documents based on items and different things, and we'll have mock meetings and trainings. We haven't been trained on the board portal, so we didn't put more on it because we didn't want to show you something that was wrong.
Okay, so but you'll be able to toggle at the bottom.
Yeah, so you'll click, the tile there, you'll click the meeting. It'll show you the agenda. It's very similar to the public portal we showed you. You'll click the agenda item, it'll show the attachments. You'll be able to annotate, so if you have a stylus, you'll be able to write on the documents and save it. You'll be able to do notes. And when you go to notes, all your questions that you had will show by item. I would just encourage, when we get ready to demo it and show you, you'll see that. We just weren't ready to show you that.
Okay, will we be able to toggle then back and forth between our agenda and the software that allows us to vote? Is that it?
It's the same
Down
portal.
At the bottom?
A dialog box, when you're ready to vote, a dialog box will pop up and allow you to speak.
So we're not going to have trouble reading that on this screen, this little screen?
We'll test it, and we'll make sure that you don't.
Because, I mean, you probably could have a wireless screen alongside since we can get into our desks now, technically you could have a bigger screen for us so that we could read these documents easier. I just want to point that out. Thank you.
Supervisor Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First and foremost, I absolutely appreciate the step forward and the forward momentum and progress. A very naive question. Cassie, you mentioned about the live streaming and the on-demand. When we switch over on April 16th, does this mean that there's no more Zoom? So a member of the public or a board member that is not in person, they need this? What I'm concerned about is somebody from the public not quite having access because of the switch. What's the transition?
We have a meeting on Monday to discuss that, but in short, the streaming will be taking the feed from the Zoom or the Teams meeting to live stream that.
So it's still OWL and Zoom, so a member of the public gets to...
No, the public will choose to join by Zoom or watch the live stream on the here.
Okay. Thank you.
Supervisor Burrow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, compliments. I see this as building an information superhighway, which to me is kind of cool to see in the public sector. One point I wanted to make is, you know, the ability to toggle back and forth and see it. There's another benefit, I think, of better decision-making. The fact that we can have information at our fingertips as we're voting. We'll have more efficient meetings, too. I wanted to pass that along. 2 questions, though, I do have. Any estimate when the public portal might be available? Any conservative estimate will be first question.
The latest would be when we post for the April 16th meeting. We could link to it now. It is live now.
Okay.
It's just not ready because you'll see tests and different things in there, so the public will see documents that have no pertaining to anything. So it is live. If I didn't take off the header, you could go to it now.
Sure.
But April 16th, it will be changed on the website.
Fabulous, okay. And the other question is, we get a goodie pile every time we come in. Is there any chance some of that could go in digitally too?
Yes,
Okay, thanks.
that'll be in the portal, and then emails will get. The one thing we didn't send is the clerk's office has to attach or do emails in Outlook. The system will email. So if a new packet's uploaded, it'll auto email the board and say you have new items available.
Great, thank you, nice work.
Supervisor Stafford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, County Clerk's Office and Administration. I know that ERP and website development is very difficult. I've done my fair share, so thank you for that. I know it's a challenge. We actually ran through the agenda at JPS last night, and I have to say that I really liked the flow. I thought it worked well, even though I was used to saying item 1, 2, and 3, and I get out of that. But that was the biggest thing. Question though, as we work through this, I did write some notes in terms of feedback. I assume that there's going to be a feedback loop in this, correct? And how do you want that feedback as we go along?
Email the clerk's office? She says email the clerk's office.
Okay. All right, sounds good. Thank you very much.
We could meet with you too. If you want to come and talk to us, we can do that.
Oh, okay.
Supervisor Schellinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 2 hopefully quick questions. Does this, so we can write our notes, we can take our notes. You said those are private, but I'm assuming those are like, does the system maintain that for records retention?
That's a Mary Ann question. So it retains it, but personal notes aren't always public records. But yes, the system will retain everything. Mary Ann will have to deal with how you can deal with personal notes. As far as a legal matter, the short answer is yes, notes aren't always public records because various reasons.
But if they are part of the public record, we'd want to be able to know that we can access them out of this system. And then, so I don't really know a lot about how big computer files were. I was trying to look and see how big like our last board packet was. But if we're maintaining 36 digital copies of every board packet, 5 copies or so of each of the committees for however long we need to maintain them, have we built in the cloud storage that we're going to need to that into what the infrastructure we already have?
Our contract is a cloud. This is all web-based, so it's all cloud-based, and it's an unlimited storage.
On our
contract, yep.
Okay.
On their end, yep.
Okay, thanks.
Supervisor Nichols.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this is a positive step in the right direction. Civic Plus also does great municipal websites, and our website could be more user-friendly as well, and make it easier to find what you're looking for. It kind of sends you in a loop these days. So when this is all done, I'd encourage you to look into the next project from Civic Plus or, a website. Thank you.
You want to say something?
Yep, Mike's been working on this, so we aren't waiting. I'm working on this, Mike's working on website.
Exactly, we're not waiting to start that project. It's underway. In fact, I've spent a good part of the last couple of weeks having meetings with the IT director, a couple of IT staff involved in our website, and department heads from almost every county department, plus some other people in departments who actively manage their web pages. The reason we're doing that is to prepare a wish list, if you will, or a description of what we'd like our website to have available as features and what we'd like to see as improvements to it overall, and to try to make those improvements consistent across the different county web pages that we have. There's actually a lot more stuff on that website than even I realized, but accessing it is crucial. And so the two biggest things we need to improve are kind of the look and feel, attractiveness of the website, but also navigation, so you can find what you need. So we've been having extensive discussions about that. We're about ready to put together and finalize our wish list, and then we're going to move the project forward and determine, do we have sufficient budget, which we may do, probably do, in various county departments. Just by moving it around, we can probably afford to do this. And, to what extent do we want to add internal resources as opposed to outside contracts? It's all on the table right now, but we're moving ahead, and it's been my goal to at least have this project move forward and well underway before May 1st. We won't have the website done by then, but at least have a plan, as to how to update it. So I certainly expect, I don't know if I want to commit to a timeline, but certainly in 2024, probably well before the end of 24, we should have a much improved website up and running, would be my hope.
Supervisor Nichols.
Thank you, and thank you for that update. Companies like Civic Plus also host the website as well, which offloads costs and opens up infrastructure for us. So I'm grateful that we're looking into that. Thank you.
I just have one question. That's a very logical question. Whose budget does this come out of?
Right now, the implementation's in miscellaneous unclassified, and we, in the next couple of years, we will determine that. But in years past, it came out of the county board budget based on use because of accounting principles and other things. It may get split up. It may stay in county board. This is the first time that the software for voting hasn't been exclusively county board. So that is why we put it into miscellaneous unclassified, because we'll determine if Mary Ann's office is using it the most or more than the county board or whatever, we may move it to comply with those kind of requirements. But it's budgeted now. We've planned for it in multiple years in miscellaneous unclassified. So 23 miscellaneous unclassified. I hope I'm not wrong. It's not in your budget, is it, Mike? I think it's still in miscellaneous unclassified in 24.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think it's in miscellaneous unclassified right now.
Yeah.
Where it ends up, will be subject to future budgets. It doesn't really matter in a sense because it's still county expenditure benefiting the county as a whole. So my philosophy is it should be in the budget of a department where it's managed, who's going to take responsibility and ownership for making sure it's appropriately managed and someone's looking at the contract and all those things.
Thank you. I don't see any other lights, so I thank you for the presentation. Was there anyone on Zoom?
No.
Okay. Thank you very much. Next, I'm going to have you stay right up here for a minute. Strategic planning results and definitions, Chris Fabian. Ethan, you want to speak on that a little bit? Chris is tied up.
Hey, Ethan, if you
go.
can hear me, I can unmute myself, but I can't share my screen or share my video. If I can have those privileges, I could share some slides.
So unfortunately, Chris will talk about it. I think what the chairman was asking me to talk about is he started his day in Phoenix for another work trip and didn't make it to Wisconsin. So that's the short version. And so we sent an email late this afternoon saying that he's adjusted and he's willing to do his slides, but it's not the same as if he were here. We understand that. So we've opened up one-on-ones for everybody. And the plan coming in was he was just going to apologize and say, I'm sorry I couldn't make it. But if you want him to run through slides, whatever the board's pleasure or the chairman's pleasure is, he's just texted me that he's willing to do that, so.
Do we want him to go through all of the slides again, or do you want to meet with him on a one-on-one basis, or talk to him directly? Pardon? One-on-one. I've heard one-on-one, so everyone agree with that? I know, but I'm asking the board what they would like. It sounds to me as though they would like to go on a one-on-one with him. Is that all possible, Chris?
Oh, that's wonderful. We've extended a link in the email that Ethan sent out earlier today, where each of you can click the link and sign up for an appointment that meets your schedule, because it automatically tells you the available meeting times from my schedule. So you look for your schedule, times that are convenient for you, and we can set up one-on-one meetings where I can walk through specifically where we are in the results and definitions component of the strategic plan, how that relates to priority-based budgeting, and most importantly, get your feedback and input. This is yet one more opportunity for input from county board members.
Okay, I do have a couple questions, though, that is right now.
Okay.
Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I'm sorry we're not going to have a full presentation. I was looking at what we have so far. Parks and Recreation so far is ranked last in a priority-based budgeting. If Parkview Nursing Home had to evacuate due to some kind of disaster, where they go is to the Expo Center, and that's under Parks and Recreation. So if there's no parks, there's also no boat launches. 4-H kids raise their animals to pay for college tuition. If they have no place to display them, they're not going to be selling their animals. That's parks. At the beginning of COVID, we had as many as 100,000 cars a day going through for testing. The next pandemic or act of war or national disaster, no parks, no place for those cars to go. Former Supervisor Jerry Finch fought for about 2 decades to get a dog park on the north end of the county. No parks, no dog parks. We have about 20 soccer fields right now, and it's not enough. And that's due to, we need those, and those come through parks. Wisconsin Quick Trip has contacted Parks Director so they can be notified about events at our county parks, because they need to increase their employee shifts due to the number of people coming in during these events. So he'll be having to notify them. There's 144 miles of snowmobile trails, no parks, no snowmobile trails. Every department meets in this county meets at least once a month. As supervisors and citizen members of committees, we question everything. We are closely monitoring priorities. We did not need to pay you all nearly $500,000 to have you come and tell us about priorities. We are looking at these every single month. Winnebago County was not a priority for you because you scheduled things back to back and couldn't get here. That's it.
Supervisor Eisen.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to speak. My observation is that I believe this presentation, the presentation should be postponed until the new board is seated, because there's going to be about 1/3 new supervisors, perhaps, taking their seats, and you're going to have to start all over again, and it doesn't make any sense going forward with this concept at this time to this almost sin-dying board.
Supervisor Nussbaum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was kind of thinking on the same lines, but my question was, can the candidates come and get this training or not?
Are you writing down all these questions?
I'm definitely taking notes on all of these. And
do you want to answer some of them questions that was just given you?
Just very, very quickly, appreciate the feedback 100%. I think I would direct Any desire for further education on priority-based budgeting through Ethan in the county executive's office, and we're always happy to provide education on the priority-based budgeting process underway and methodology. So yeah, no problems there. And then on the draft results and result definitions, appreciate the first comments. No rankings have taken place up until now. So these are just draft results and definitions that are still open for input. So that's what the one-on-ones will be of use for.
And I think the last one is that this board will be going off here within the next month or so. Will you be coming back and also talking to the new board, new members, or can the new ones that are running come and take part in it now?
I will definitely follow up with Ethan and the county exec office to discuss how to incorporate new board members when they are seated and get their input. And certainly in the midst of the process of running for the county board, I would certainly welcome if there's anything that I can do to help provide education to those who are running. I would extend it. Ethan, we can talk about that and discuss having an opportunity to provide some education.
Yeah, so two things we can do. We have the emails for candidates running. So we can send the survey to the candidates and divide the information based on if they're a candidate or currently on the board. And Chris and I also talked today. May, whatever the date is, the first Tuesday in May is also a special orders meeting, which in our initial plan was to kind of go through this again with the new board, because a lot of it is, you know, the departments and the county board were very much aligned, and so we suspect that the new board members would be very much aligned in it. So we can do what we planned here in May, and that's the new board, and through orientation meetings and other things, certainly solicit their feedback.
Supervisor Swan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Chris, will you be coming back then to report on results since you aren't here tonight? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I will have at least one more trip back to the county. So there is the results and definitions component after further input is received, and we move from draft stage towards a final stage for results and definitions. And then just to reiterate, this is just to set the priorities that we then use in the priority-based budgeting process, which that will be taking place all throughout budget development for the rest of the year. So this is just the priority part of priority-based budgeting. There's still the full budget development process, and I will be back in the county for that component of the process.
But since you aren't here tonight, does this mean we have to go to individual meetings to get what we otherwise would have had tonight?
Oh, no. The individual meetings would have been, that's the next step in the input process, whether I was in person or virtual.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Dowling.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to echo what the other supervisors have said, and I would really like to have Chris here in person so that we could discuss things, especially with the rate that the county has agreed to pay. That would be more beneficial, and I do agree that we should wait until the new board is here.
Okay, I think that's what they've decided to do pretty much now. I'm looking at Chris and Ethan both here, so that's what they're going to do. They're going to go ahead and send out things to those that are running if they want to fill out anything in that, so they have that option. And then they're going to also do it after the election to meet with the new board also. Supervisor Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I continue to remain very skeptical of priority-based budgeting. If you spend even 10 minutes or less on Google, you will find that a lot of people that are doing priority-based budgeting within a few years are in some serious financial trouble. I absolutely recognize that the responsibility lies on the people that vote for the budget. I would be curious to hear what your role is in advising them if you're starting to see them approaching a fiscal cliff.
I really thank you very much for that point. And priority-based budgeting is a tool to spend within your means, whatever the means might be. So whereas local governments face fiscal challenges, and so many of us in local government are right now, priority-based budgeting is a tool to say, with the resources that are coming in, how do we always ensure that those resources, whether they're limited or in abundance, can be aligned in the best way possible towards the priorities that you're striving to achieve. Many organizations will face the fiscal cliff that you are describing right now, and the value proposition of priority-based budgeting is, in those tough times when you all, as you just mentioned, have to vote on a budget, how do you make sure that the reductions that you're considering or the revenue options that might be on the table are the best possible options given the priorities that you're striving to achieve? That's the objective in priority-based budgeting.
I understand that. I just, if anyone wants to spend 10 minutes on Google, do priority-based budgeting and then put in budget deficits. Notably, one of the companies that endorsed you, the school district, the ISD out of Dallas, is now doing a $24 million deficit.
Right.
So I'm curious, what is your role in advising them, look, you guys are in trouble, rather than having all of a sudden huge millions of dollars in budget deficits?
Right. I will try to clarify that priority-based budgeting doesn't prevent that school district who you're mentioning from having a budget deficit. Priority-based budgeting ensures that, given the fact that they are facing this financial stress, how can they ensure that they're using the resources that they have to focus on funding those programs in the delivery of curriculum that matter most and meet the priorities to the highest level overall? So in priority-based budgeting for that school district, as an example, priority-based budgeting won't help them to handle local economic issues or enrollment considerations. Priority-based budgeting starts at the point of, you have the resources that you have, how do you spend within your means to the greatest degree possible? So other examples include, as you'll find in your Google search, as you mentioned, when COVID hit, and so many local governments who we were working with were facing budget deficits. Priority-based budgeting won't prevent the budget deficit. That's your local economy. That's what's taking place from a property tax or a sales tax or revenue perspective. Where priority-based budgeting becomes vital in those situations is that when the resources come in, whatever they might be, you need a tool, priority-based budgeting, to ensure that we only have so many resources. How are we going to align them with the priorities that matter most and make challenging decisions rather than across-the-board decisions overall?
Lastly, to follow up on, I believe it was Supervisor Swan, I'm assuming that this means Winnebago County is going to be implementing this for their next budget for October of 2024. So when are you going to be here?
I don't know when the next time I'll be in town is, but I'll be back in town. I've been there twice, but I'll be back for probably a third and fourth time over the course of the budget development process overall. We work consistently throughout the implementation process, but on site, I believe we have 2 more trips scheduled, or 2 more trips available to be scheduled. But we can follow up when we get the next on-site scheduled, that's for sure.
Supervisor Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just going to look at this a little bit different. Can you tell me how many supervisors attended your meetings?
I don't know how many attended the meetings. I know that 17 supervisors have completed the survey thus far.
Okay. I happened to go to one of the meetings. There were 16 of us there. So I guess what I'm saying is, I understand we're talking about less than half of us are kind of in on this or have done the survey. So the information you got is only on a certain amount of us. And now in a few more weeks, there'll be a whole nother third that'll be changing here. So I guess what I'm looking at is that the information isn't the true information. I know Ethan was nice enough to said that everyone probably with the next board will buy in for it. But for me, I'm thinking if 16 or 17 or 18 of us 36 bought in or did whatever, the one-on-ones is going to be, it might be half. And you know, I mean, I'm just frustrated here because this is something we're going to change a pretty good sized budget with, and we haven't had us all buy in or be part of it. And now we're talking about you coming back when you can, so that 16 or 17 other people that didn't do it and 16 or 17 other new ones, that's a pretty good, that's a lot of difference, you know. And I'm saying we're judging on all this here, and you were nice enough to ask for more input. I'm not sure how many other people have added to this thing. Do you understand what I mean? It just doesn't seem like this is 100% of us being on board. I hope the one-on-ones would be better, but you can't go on with doing a third or a quarter. You know, it just doesn't make sense to me. Does it make sense to you?
I definitely appreciate your comments. We have 17 thus far, and part of my role, even at this interim step, is to be encouraging, to say the 17 who have participated, the feedback has been really good. That was just the survey tool. Then I came on site to do the individual meetings. They were optional meetings with board members, and that was there towards the end of January. Had a separate discussion with department directors on gathering all of their input on the why of local government and how that is fulfilled. And then you're right. So at this interim step, instead of declaring, hey, we have final results and definitions, I agree. I think I agree with the point that you're making is we're continuing to welcome more input and offer the one-on-ones as an opportunity to continue to reach out and make sure that for those of you who haven't had a chance to participate thus far, we would really love your input. And to the extent that there are potentially new board members coming on board, that's not unique for local governments who get into priority-based budgeting. You'll have a change at the elected official level. And so we definitely have some tools to invite them into the process and just continue to make sure that these priorities do represent Winnebago County for by the time we get to evaluating the budget relative to programs and their influence on these priorities, that it's reflective. It's the best that we can come to understand about resource alignment with your priorities overall. So in summary, I'd simply say that thanks for participating as you have, and our effort is to continue to seek more input while we can. It's not holding up the process of the rest of priority-based budgeting, but please participate. This is a great chance to get your fingerprints on these priorities.
I appreciate that. And I happened to come across it too at a couple of our committees and asked them about it, and it was about the same thing. About a third of them have answered back. So again, as a supervisor, not new anymore, being here, I just feel that this job is a lot more to it than that, and to be in major things like this and not be a part of it, I got to say is a mistake. I'm sorry, but I agree what you're doing, but we need more input, and it's a mistake that 20 some of us aren't. Thank you.
Supervisor Bender.
I want to say I watched both your presentations online, and the first day that you couldn't really read the screen, the second day was much better. What I see a priority budget is kind of like home budgeting. You got an envelope. First money is the house payment, second money is the car, you know. Last money is entertainment. If there's no money for entertainment, you don't do it. And that's what priority-based budget is. We got things that we have to pay for, and we got things that we don't. So we have to prioritize the way we spend our money. It's really, you know, to me, it's not that complicated. You know, we have bills that have to be paid, and we have other things that, you know, well, we can maybe get another year out of them or 2 years out of them, or maybe we forget that program altogether. You know, it's like the federal government. Eventually, they're going to have to make some hard decisions. You have to balance the budget. You can't basically run $1 trillion more of debt every 100 days and basically sustain that forever. And that's basically what priority budgeting is. You have to take your priorities and put them in order.
Amen.
Well, I see no more lights, Chris. I thank you very much for being here, and we look forward to having you here on a one-on-one basis. I think that always brings more to it, but we see your face up there, and so thanks for at least appearing.
But thank you very much, and I look forward to gathering more input from everybody. Please look out for Ethan's email, and I look back forward to being on site the next go-around. Take care, everyone.
Take care. Outdoor Recreation Spirit Fund Investment, Parks Department.
There we go. Cool. All right. Well, thank you, Chairman Egan. Thank you for County Board for allowing me to present this evening on a project that's been about a year in the making. We've been working through, and actually in a future board meeting too, it's already been to the Parks Committee, but we'll be also presenting our comprehensive outdoor rec plan, which is our 5-year renewed plan for the county park system, and our master plan of the community park. So you're going to see a lot of aspects of those plans in the presentation tonight. So hopefully in a very near future meeting, potentially this month, that you'll see that plan as well. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with the Winnebago County Parks plan. What you'll see is we're trying to increase resilience for outdoor recreation, and this is our comprehensive Spirit Fund request. So when constructing our Spirit Fund request for the County Parks Department, we looked at a couple different goals. And within those goals, so we have 2 goals, and within those goals we have 6 objectives. So usually your objectives are measurable, and your goals, they're measurable to those goals. So our first goal is long-term maintenance. So with all of these projects, trying to look at legacy projects that are going to fix maintenance issues either that we have now or that we can foresee into the future. So number 1, looking to create resiliency by addressing the cost for future capital or ongoing maintenance projects due to need maintenance. Now what I'm also going to do, I'll just go over these, but then as we go through the projects, I will give examples of why these fit the projects. Address current maintenance issues throughout our park system that require one-time costs. reducing our long-term maintenance when it comes to staff time. We have a limited number of resources, as we've talked about at the previous presentation. We have 5 staff members for 1,000 acres of parkland. And so reducing that maintenance that is needed on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis. And then our second goal is providing more opportunities for residents and users of the park system, or enhancing or modifying some of the different facilities we have. So that means providing more open space, kind of gearing the county park system more towards open spaces for residents within Winnebago County to enjoy the natural environment, take part in physical activity, and access the water system. But as an objective of itself, as we know how valuable a resource the water system is in Winnebago County, providing access to as many people as possible to the water. Also providing more capacity for user groups, utilizing our current park system. So that's where kind of the enhancing comes into play, that we do have current users that are using our park system and we're getting to capacity for their particular activity. So just a little bit of an outline of kind of giving a little bit more of an overview of how we're kind of proposing this request. Following, and I know it's been a little while, but with land and water request, the $3 million, I don't know off the top of my head, that was granted to land and water for their grant program within the county. The goal would be that the county board commits the amount of funds, and I'll go over the different projects as to how we came up with $3.9 million of spirit funds for outdoor recreation. And then we have a resolution, and I believe it was put on, was it put on the desk? No, okay. It is, we do have a draft resolution and a agenda item report. Yes, was it? Okay. And now that was, obviously that's why this is just a presentation for tonight. That'll also be on the agenda for the ARPA Commission meeting tomorrow. So just kind of how the special orders meeting lined up. We're doing county board first, and then we're going to present for the first time to the ARPA Commission. So they haven't been presented to yet, but just because there was a special orders meeting, it made sense to do this first. Then what we would request is that if the funds are granted to the Parks Department, that the Parks Committee would then have to approve project by project as the projects become ready and as potential grant funding or donations are secured for those projects. The goal would be to further the funds. So we're asking for $3.9 million, but our example number 1 is going to show how those funds obviously can be furthered when we talk about Waukau Dam. There's different grant opportunities that are listed on here, whether it's the RAISE Fund or matching local dollars, whether it's community foundation, local donors, those types of things. And I kind of just went over it already, but where the Parks and Recreation Committee would then advance the project. So the funding would be approved, but then each project would still have to get approved by the Parks and Rec Committee. And then annually, we would update the county board on where the fund is, what projects have been moved forward by the Parks Committee, and where those projects are in construction. Just a little bit of data to kind of go over some of the areas where some of our identified projects are, just to kind of give you an example of where some of the data comes from for some of these projects. The first one, the Winnebago County Parks Department did receive a $751,000 grant in December for the Waukau Dam. We did receive a grant contract from the state of Wisconsin, so that is already an approved grant. It's gone through joint finance with the State Department, which is a requirement for this large of a grant. So that's really exciting news. Now we're just waiting on the county funding portion. The Waiawash Trail, and now I do want to highlight and be completely transparent with some of these numbers because they're Waiawash Trail, so these are our trail counter numbers on our trail system. We have, 2 years ago I installed trail counters at the West Wind Trailhead, Allenville, and Medina. Keep in mind that our trail is very much one way in the sense of it's straight. You're not making a loop. So more than likely, if you're walking down that trail, you're going to walk back to your car. So these, I do take an assumption with these in the sense of the 42,000 at West Wind, 22,000 users, and 25,000 at Medina. I cut that in half just to be safe. Obviously, some people do go the full distance. They park up ahead, and then they do a longer distance all the way to Outagamie County. But for the sake of the data, 21,000 people at West Wind, 11,000 at Allenville, and 12,000 at Medina. So it just shows how often the Waiawash Trail is used throughout all 12-plus miles of the Waiawash Trail in Winnebago County. And then we have the boat landings. So we have car counters out at the boat landings. These ones are a little bit more accurate. Some of our driveways are a little bit more narrow. So like at Grunman, sometimes it does pick up a car twice. So for this one in particular, I did 2/3. So it says 54,000 cars, but when you do the math at 2/3, it's about 36,000 cars a year that are going into the Grumman boat landing. Butamore is a little bit more of a loop, but I still did the 2/3 because we shouldn't be getting as much of the double. So that one is 21,000 if you take into 2/3. So it's a lot of cars. It's a lot of users that are coming to our boat landings. And just also, our boat landings are currently only serving, for the most part, our boat users. Obviously, you can go park there and you can enjoy the landing, but there's really not an amenity other than maybe Eureka with the playground that you can do just by going to the boat landings. And then lastly, the community park at the bottom. So soccer fields, we're turning users away. We're working with all the different various clubs in the area, and we've been turning users away, especially in the spring months. Now, fall as well, we've had issues, but in the spring we have so many users that are coming to us asking for use of the parks, and I've been working with those different users, and we've been turning people away. Part of the reason is, and you'll see on one of the further slides, I did put a screenshot of the fall, which actually isn't even as busy as the spring, and we had a night every week that only one field was available, and that doesn't even account for some of the fields that we have down, just due to needing to rest them due to maintenance. Rugby is the same way. They have a wait list for their tournaments. They're in need of concession stand area or space over there. And our shelter, two of our shelters are from 1977. Two of them are from 1968. I'm going off the blueprints that I just pulled up the other day for some of the renovations we're doing within the capital request that the county board approved. But the playgrounds are all over 25 years old. Typically, a playground lasts for roughly 25 years as its expected life expectancy. So we have 4 playgrounds in the park. We're getting rid of one at the pavilion and eliminating it just because it doesn't make sense in that space. But then, for instance, in Shelter 3 later on, I'll show you we're looking to replace that one. And then also adding a pickleball court complex to accommodate the growing sport. So those are just a real big snapshot. And these are those identified project lists and a little bit more specific descriptions. The Wakaw Dam Nature Preserve, I presented on that last year. We'll go through each project more in a brief, not in real in-depth. But of course, if you have any questions after I go through them, please let me know. Waiwash Trail, fixing some pavement down by UWO that is deteriorating that needs to be fixed. And then paving to Butamore Drive and eventually turning that over to the city of Oshkosh, which has been in the making for 12 years before I started 3 years ago, so almost 15 years now, where we've been trying to move that to the city for their jurisdiction for maintenance. Boat landings, adding 3 self-service kayak rental stations, once again getting more use out there for maybe those that don't own boats, and it's also another revenue source, so when they're renting kayaks, that'll help to go towards paying for the boat landings. And then at the Winnebago County Community Park, is identified in phase 1 of the master plan, replacing playground number 3 and constructing a new shelter concession stand, building a 3rd and 4th rugby field, and removing the south ball field diamond because we're getting a lot less softball at the community park. And this was even after, through all these meetings with the master plan, and I'll get to it a little later, we've been engaging with different user groups, and that includes the Oshkosh Rec Department who uses that for softball. Properly till and grade and seed 4 soccer fields, and add an additional soccer field with irrigation for more capacity, and then adding the 8 pickleball courts north of the tennis courts. You can kind of see, I put in red where the different projects are located, so you can kind of see geographically how they fit within the county. Just gives you a good illustration of where all these projects are located. All right, so then we get into the projects themselves. Now this project, Wakaw Dam, for the most part, I have them ranked in somewhat of like a priority. Wakaw Dam, we have a grant that's sitting, that's waiting for us. The county board approved engineering funds, so we've been engineering, and we're ready to go out to bid as early as May of this year for potential construction this July. So for this particular project, time is a little bit more of the essence. What you'll see for each project is that there's a blue box, and we go back to our goals and we go back to our objectives. What does this particular project fit within that box? So for instance, this one fits all 6 of them: creating resiliency, addressing current maintenance, reducing long-term maintenance providing open space as a nature preserve, of course, water access, that's our big issue out there, and then increasing capacity. So you'll notice that with each project, we refer back to our goals and objectives to make sure they align. Now, you'll notice not every project does reflect all 6 of them. You know, just for full transparency, obviously not every project's by a waterway or, you know, that type of thing. So just so you're aware that way too. So I won't go too in-depth into Waukau Dam because I know we presented on it last year, and honestly, a lot of these slides are very similar just to kind of bring up a memory of what we have going on. But this picture kind of explains it. I'll try to talk very loud. Explains it the most. If you recall, the pond is over here on this side, and what's happening, even just and this is even a rain event, this is just a snow melt. You can see how the water is washing out, and you can see the crevices. I mean, they're 2-3 feet deep in some areas, and you're already seeing large stone. So it's washing out the embankment, and if it were to continue to do that, obviously we go out there, we maintain it every single year or in between different rainfalls. But if it were to completely wash out, it could wash out the pond. Actually, I didn't know if the video would work. So you're going to see it a little bit more. You can see how the water is running from right to left. I don't think I turned the camera. But you can see how fast it's running and how it's eroding out the side. Oh, I did. You can see how deep some of those really are. And it's just creating channels right now. But then that runs to Waukau Creek, which is on the other side of the embankment. So our proposal with the Waukau Dam and what we've been working on designing and engineering, and actually I'm just going to skip to the plan or the map or the, we don't have a final plan yet, so this isn't the updated final plan that would go to bid, but all the same, as we've been working through the engineering, all of the similar design elements have been staying. We're still looking to put some sort of armor flex or armament where basically we're going to purposely make the embankment smaller so that way when there is rain events that it has a low area to run over that's not organics, that's not going to rip up like it's doing there and going into the creek. So also we're going to reinforce the turf here for the even larger rain events. And then we're looking to put actually what we found is the most effective is to actually put a boardwalk right here. So just at an elevated boardwalk to disturb the least amount of area. Obviously we're still going to reinforce underneath. The parking lot we found has really never been paved, so that's why partially it's in such poor shape. Adding that site lighting, so that way we have more security, doing a small little shelter more on the inside here, and fixing the railings and the catwalks and to make it more accessible. If you've been out there, specifically this one down here, as you cross over this dam, it's just a drop off because of all the washout. So we have work to do with riprap, with repairing some of that, and making these safer crossings. This, just keep in mind, this parking lot is not part of this part of the plan at this time. This intersection's too unsafe to add a park. It does technically, right now it's been cut as a drive for a very long time. In order to make this work, we'd have to realign the road. There are state grants out there for that. I have talked to the highway commissioner, but obviously it's not any sort of immediate something we can tackle with this project due to timing for grants and the cycle for the state being a state highway. So that's the Waukau Dam. The Waiawash Trail project. As you can see, this one does meet all 6 of our goals. The goal of this is, so when the Tribal Heritage Bridge was built that crosses over Butamore, the goal was, at that time, in 2013, was to, basically the county would take maintenance ownership of that bridge, because it's half town, half city jurisdiction, and then the city was going to take jurisdiction of the Waiawash Trail, basically from the cemetery south to UWO. For whatever reason, we've been working through it for many, many years. I shouldn't say for whatever, there's a lot of details in terms of property and easements that have to be adjusted. All of those are cleared out now. We've been meeting with the city for the last 2 years. And so we do have a new easement agreement with Meritor. We can move the trail down by there, and I'll explain that in a second. But we are pretty much lined up to be able to finally turn that over to the city. However, our trail that is deteriorated down by UWO is deteriorated. It needs to be, whether we give it to the city or not, we need to fix it because it's a safety hazard. And then we need to move the trail because it's on that easement. I'm just going to move to the map. I know it's on the bullet points here, but right here is Meritor Cummings Electric. I think it was sold to now. It's changed hands a few times. Right now, our trail runs right through here, right through the woods. Instead, we're going to move the trail over along the river, which is a better experience for the trail users anyways. Then the private business has more room to develop rather than a trail going right through the middle of their property. So no matter what, we need to move the trail is another thing we would need to do. Otherwise, we jeopardize potentially being able to keep that easement with the private business because they want, obviously, the trail out of the middle of the property so they can develop it. It is under ATC power lines too, which makes it perfect anyways. It's not, you know, there's not a lot that they can do to develop under them. So it's still a state designated trail. So, so that's a section there that we also need to move. Then, so this is starting down at UWO. This is the section from, it's hard to see on the map, but basically, I have it in my notes if I couldn't see it, to Rockwell. So UWO down here to Rockwell Avenue. This is the asphalt section that we need to replace that is not in good condition. Then it is gravel through here. Like I said, it goes through the woods, and then it stops over here up at New York. So then once you cross over New York, this is all on road. It is signed though. It is signed, designated. There are some even bike lanes. So it is a safe route. And then the cemetery is gravel right now, all the way up to Butamore Drive. And then Westwind, one of the trailheads I talked about with the trail counters, that's just right north of there. Just over the bridge by the Tribal Heritage Crossing and the bridge there. So the plan would be to pave that 3-mile stretch. Obviously, some of it's already on the road, already paved, so that we wouldn't need to pave that. But ultimately, what it would also create is it would create a natural loop. This is that Tribal Heritage Crossing that we maintain now, the Parks Department. And this is the new park in the city of Oshkosh along the lake. And then this would be the bridge that crosses over to Rockwell, or to New York. And basically, it also creates a 4.6-mile loop. This red section is the section I'm referring to that we'd be doing the work on, and then transferring over to the city. All right, so then boat landings. So this one meets 5 of our criteria. It creates resilience, reduces long-term maintenance, open space, the water access, and increasing capacity, because it adds that ability for someone without a boat that can't afford a boat but wants to go out on the lake, that's maybe never tried kayaking, to be able to rent a kayak. This year, Neenah, Appleton, Kimberly, I think Menasha, I know for sure Neenah, Appleton, Kimberly are adding these rent for fun stations. Actually, the city of Oshkosh already has one. They started theirs last year. Basically, it's a station you can come up to with your smartphone. You can just basically rent the kayak right on there. It allows you to open the lock with your phone, but it's all done through this company. So nobody from the Parks Department has to answer the phone when the cage does not open. Yes, we might have to answer during our business hours and refer them to the company to help them out. But once again, from a maintenance standpoint, it's providing access to our resource, but it's very minimal maintenance. At the end of the day, we have a metal cage on our property that is run by essentially a company that's going to rent out the kayaks. And it's all self-service. So it can be done on a weekend. You can come there on a weekend when we're not in the office, rent a kayak, and go out on the lake. The proposal would be to put one at Grumman, because we do have the new ADA kayak launch, so users of all ages could get, and all abilities can go out. From there, Asylum, and also at Eureka. That would be our proposal for the 3 spots, so on the Fox River, and then 2 on Lake Winnebago. All right, so then this is where we get into more of the community park, and where it talks about the master plan. Like I mentioned, at a future meeting, we'll be going over the whole master plan, just to kind of give just a real quick synopsis, so that way it wasn't just me that sat in an office for a year and tried to figure out a master plan.
So we went through a process from June through December. We had two surveys, one survey for the whole park system for the comprehensive outdoor rec plan, one survey just for the master plan of the community park itself. So we basically took a deeper dive of the community park because of how large of a property it was. We had master plans on parts of the park, but nothing that really looked at the park as a whole of how are we utilizing this large property we have and all the amenities at the park. So we did two surveys. We had two public informational meetings in person. We had the engineers come out on site. We had Parks Committee walk the park with the engineers, with staff. They brought staff out to the park. So we had quite a few different meetings on this and different iterations of it too. So it didn't just start, you know, this isn't the plan after the first meeting, for instance. You'll see it's color-coded. Once I present the master plan at a future meeting, you'll see blue is phase 1, pink is phase 2, and orange is phase 3 future phases. So trying to set up, what you'll notice with blue is blue includes all the items that were in our capital improvement plan, which was the parking lots, the shelters, the maintenance road to the shop. Yeah, those items, I thought there was more. Parking lots were a lot of them, obviously. So, and then also, blue does include what we're requesting in the Spirit Fund. So basically, this request, combined with the capital improvement plan, are phase 1 of the community park master plan. So we'd be accomplishing phase 1. Phase 2 is in the capital improvement plan, is the pavilion in future years, which was presented, I think, for 27 off the top of my head. And then some of the items in orange were on future capital as well. So maybe I should have skipped to this slide a little bit first. But basically, I did color code so you can see Spirit Fund in red. Anything circled in red is being covered by the Spirit Fund request. The yellow is things that are being removed, that we're demolishing or getting rid of. That's the South Baseball, softball field, and the shelter 3 and the playground 3. And then purple is all of the items that that the board has already approved through the capital improvement plan. They're actually ready in motion. So now we'll go through each one individually. Not the capital ones. These are just the Spirit Fund ones. Oh, there we go. So the first one is Shelter 3 and the playground replacement. So this is the only shelter that wasn't included in our plan for fixing the shelters and remodeling the shelters. And it's the one of the smaller ones, just like Shelter 4. In fact, we've met with an engineer with the capital improvement plan that was approved just 2 weeks ago out at the park. And we actually think Shelter 4 is probably going to cost more than Shelters 1 and 2 after we had a good chance to dive into the blueprints and really analyze. We know that the $250,000 that we were presented was enough, but we just didn't quite think that Shelter 4 was going to be the one that's going to be most costly. But it's also half the size of the other shelters. So that is why, with this particular plan, we are proposing to remove this shelter. So we're proposing to remove Shelter 3, remove the playground, because like I mentioned, we need to start figuring out what we're going to do with these playgrounds, removing them and replacing them, or removing them completely for safety reasons. And then the plan is to move it to the other side over on this side. And it was in the master plan, I apologize, it's not on the zoomed in version. But shelter and playground over on this side. And the reason why, instead of being over here, is because right now, yes, we were proposing a third rugby field, but by moving it to the center of the park, we're centering it around the north softball field, the new rugby field, tennis, pickleball, closer to Shelter 2, closer, just basically more in the center loop of the park, making it a more central, because if we're going to have a brand new shelter and a brand new playground that we're trying to make fully accessible, we want it to kind of be central into the park. So that addresses creating resiliency, addressing current maintenance with Shelter 3 and with the playground, and reducing that long-term maintenance by, instead of putting a Band-Aid on it, getting a new facility out there. It does address the concession stand, so now the softball, rugby, if there ever was a tennis or a pickleball tournament, especially if you had 8 courts out there, now there's a facility out there that can be utilized for those purposes as well. Also keep in mind, I didn't mention it, but part of the reason over here too is to have a bathroom on this side, because if we have a larger court complex over here, our nearest bathroom's across the street at Shelter 4. So it's just a safety thing too, because we do have a bridge that crosses the creek right here that could get you to this new shelter, the new bathroom, so it would be a safer place as well. So if you're playing tennis, you're playing pickleball, and your kids are on the playground, you know they're not crossing a road and it's a safer environment. All right, so then with that is removing the south ball diamond, and this is why we're looking to remove the south ball diamond. What you'll see here, I mean, it's just maintenance issues that we either have to fix once again, or we address it by removing it, and instead we're going to put in open space, a rugby field, which is much less maintenance. So down below the score booth, you can see the undermining of the water. You can kind of even see it's not truly that extreme. It's not leaning like this, but it does have a tilt to it in the sense of if we do not do something with it, we're going to need to remove it here soon anyways. So that's, that score booth is going to have to be removed either way. You can see eventually it's going to undermine so much as it's going to be a safety hazard. The fences, this is all the fence lines. I just didn't have enough room to put all the pictures in. You can see how the fences are leaning. We need new fence. It's rusting. There's places where the connections don't fit anymore. The backstop is completely rusted. We might as well replace it. So we're going to just get rid of it. Talking to Oshkosh Rec, who does run softball out at the fields and really is the only organized group that runs softball at our fields or runs any activity on the softball fields. They do play about 2 nights a week, and they're pretty much only playing on the North Ball Diamond. And they don't envision coming back. They were playing my first year a little bit more out here, but now that the city has the amenities they need, they're planning on staying over there, which then that's why this is perfect, and we can focus more on rugby where there aren't other rugby fields in the county, really. So that kind of comes to the third point, at least with this area, is that we would then convert that area into what they would want to consider the premier rugby field. So this, right now we have a rugby field, and I can't remember if it's on the map, no it's not. Right now we have a rugby field that runs this way, east and west, but it's not regulation size, it's small, so basically can't be used for, they do use it for tournaments, but it's not ideal. So instead we turn it, going north-south, oops, sorry, didn't mean to point it at you, north-south, which is better anyways for playing. And then it would leave enough space around it for the future for if the rugby club wants, and what you'll see a pattern here with soccer too, if the rugby club wants to work on donations or to try to enhance the area with lighting or bleachers or those types of things. So that's where the clubs are going to come into play. I've already had some of the clubs, rugby is one of them, that already showed me a website that they want to come out with for donations. So people, they are aware and they want to enhance the area even more. So what we're focusing on is the infrastructure and the guts of it that you need a field to play on. And then after that, if you would like more amenities, bleachers, lights, those types of things, that can be utilized through fundraising. And then we go to the soccer complex. So the soccer complex, we have a lot of fields. We have about 15, it's deceiving because we have 15 full-size fields or larger fields. They're not all full-size. The thing is, a lot of times they get divvied up, and so we even have sometimes up to 20 fields. Because what you'll see is sometimes, like this field this year was used for 4 smaller fields because the smaller kids don't need, obviously, one larger field to play on. So we divvy it up into 4 smaller fields. And then we rotate that around with a soccer club so that way the wear isn't always in one field. So it is getting rotated every year too because all that concentrated use in one area does wear down that particular field. So we're doing things already to try to prevent the maintenance, but there's still that much use out there that we this fall had to close down all 3 of these fields. We used this one in the corner, but we had to close down the other 3 fields. So they just weren't in use. So the plan is, yes, there's multiple fields out here that have issues, so we knew we couldn't obviously address all the fields. So we're addressing the fields that from a maintenance standpoint and from meeting with the soccer clubs where everyone agreed that these are the 4 worst fields and that we can do the best work in terms of one contractor in one space, best bang for our buck. So we have basically, we'd be grading these 4 fields and then adding, which I'll get to in an additional slide, that's where we'll add the capacity in this additional space. But this would create the resiliency, address the current maintenance, reduce long-term maintenance, increase the capacity, and continue to provide for that open recreation and open space. What you'll see on this page, because this is the one where where we're talking about, this is the field right now where we'd be adding the additional soccer field. This schedule is from fall. So keep in mind, fall we only have about 1 to 3 groups out there. United Soccer is out there, and then we have a few other straggler groups that are out there in the sense of smaller groups. But in the spring, this schedule is completely different. And we're working on, we have a new rec software that we're working on implementing that's going to allow for better scheduling and better transparency and allow us to see it better. That all being said, I was very much on top of it this last year, and it's truly full in spring. I mean, what you'll see here in fall is this is that one day I was talking about earlier. You got 1 slot here, and then here you only have 4 fields. Some of these fields also are closed down, like I mentioned. So even though these looks like a lot of space, that's actually only 3 fields because that's where those younger kids play. So it's really only 3 playing surfaces that are available there. And once again, this is in fall. So then we go to the final part of the project, or the overall project, is the pickleball courts north of the tennis courts. This one meets the goal of creating resiliency and creating capacity, or increasing capacity. An 8-court complex would provide, instead of doing 1 or 2 courts, an 8-court complex would provide, just like soccer, just like rugby, just like disc golf. We have 36 disc golf holes out here, which we did all of that upgrade just through operating budget and through staff. But basically, when you think of the county and the community park, it's about larger tournaments, larger events, larger gathering spaces. And so it's right off of the highway. You could truly see potential more larger groups or larger events that would take place if we were to put the 8 pickleball court complex here at the community park. Plus, we already have the existing parking there, and we would then be moving the shelter, concession stand, and playground over to the middle of the park so it's safer to get to the bathrooms. And then I'm almost to the last page. So then this kind of summarizes where I got the numbers from. Like I mentioned, the 3.9 or 3.8 million. This is where those numbers derive from. So we have the Waukau Dam, the 751,000. That's 50% of the project, and the DNR has the other 751,000 approved already. The Waiwash Trail, that 3-mile stretch for 500,000. The boat landing, and I will say, trails tend to have a decent amount of grant opportunities out there, so that's one we'd be looking to leverage funds and potentially do other things on the trails. The snowmobile clubs need their bridges widened. A lot of our old railroad bridges, we have 8 of them, are getting to the point where they are in more rough shape. They're all mostly wooden bridges, except for 2. Boat landings, this is the kayak rental stations. That's the cost for 3 of them to provide that extra capacity, and that's also a revenue generating item. And then this is the community park items individually, and then the engineering cost. You'll notice I only calculated that for the Waiwash Trail and the community park because Waukau Dam, that's already approved. That's not part of this. And then the boat landing, that's all internal. We don't need an engineer to do that work. So that's where the $3.8 million request comes from, to show you where those numbers all came from. And with that, I'll take questions. Yes.
Must have done a good job. Oops, here we come. Zoning.
Yes,
Zoning.
in regards to the kayak stations, who's responsible for maintaining them? Number 1, who's accepting the liability in the event that someone drowns? Number 2.
So when they sign up to rent the kayak, they do have to sign a waiver with that company because it's their kayak they're renting. So if there's something wrong with the kayak, that's with that particular company. And so they are signing a waiver with them. We do receive a percentage of the sales is how that particular contract works. You can do it a couple ways. You can receive the percentage, or you can basically let them keep all of it and just have an amenity out there. Obviously, we'd look a little bit at the percentage, but they do have a waiver when they sign up.
So they own all the equipment?
They own all of the equipment. So if, like they said, if a kayak goes missing, or that's their responsibility, they'll put that back into the station.
Okay. Thank you. And by the way, thank you for all the work you've done.
Vice Chairman Fari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have to question your presentation on the Waiwash Trail a little bit here. You're proposing to realign the trail and pave it within the city of Oshkosh, correct?
Correct.
And you're
Yep.
stating that there's a safety issue because it's not paved?
No, so the trail down by UWO is paved. It has basically spider cracking, the pavement's starting to fail. It does have bumps where there's culverts, so it's becoming a safety issue that way where it's already paved. So the section that's already paved is the section from UWO to Rockwell. That's already paved. And that, as of right now, yes, it's in the city, but we do maintain that, and it's an agreement with the city right now, or the city. The city and the DNR, because it's a state trail, that we do maintain that as of right now.
The rest of the trail obviously is gravel, and we're not concerned
Yes.
with safety issues there.
Correct.
Why would we, as a county board, want to spend $500,000 on this portion of the trail and then give it to the city of Oshkosh? Why don't we just give it to them the way it is and let them do it?
So the two arguments I would make, or the two thoughts I would have would be, we do have to realign the trail, which right now, even if we didn't give it to the city, we would have to realign it. That was by the Meritor property. That's where it is gravel. We could realign it as gravel. There's nothing to say that we couldn't, like if it was still the counties. And then the safety issue down by UWO.
Why do we have to realign the trail?
So-
Is there a legal obligation to do that?
So right now we have an easement with Meritor, or Cummings Electric,
Yes.
whoever it's owned by now. We do have an easement with them, and they want the easement moved. If we don't move the easement, they could potentially take that property back. Now there's a gap in the Wyowash Trail that many people use. So we need to move it towards the river simply to work with our partners, work with the person we have, or the company that we have the easement through, to ensure the future of the trail stays in its current alignment and a safe alignment.
I was referring more to your realignment of the trail up in the area where it would be moved from the center of the property closer to the river, and you said for commercial development.
Correct, because if we leave it in the center, they may just eventually say that they're gonna get out of the easement. And then, because they want to be able to develop there in the future. So if we move it to the river, there's the ATC lines above anyways. They're not going to develop under the ATC lines. We can keep the trail there even if they have future development there.
Why is this easement subject to cancellation by the other party? Is it not a 99-year perpetual easement?
No, I do not believe so. I
believe
apologize,
so?
I don't have it in front of me, but I do not believe it's that duration.
Well, I thank you for your presentation, but I certainly do have concerns about that part of it.
Yeah. Supervisor Buck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Director Brees, for your presentation. Just sticking with the soccer fields, and you mentioned that you have to turn people away. Can you talk a little bit more about that and who's calling and what their concerns are? So we've had we renew it every year, so I don't want to say a long-term agreement, but we've had a long-term partnership and relationship with OIC, Oshkosh Youth Soccer. They schedule the fields. So that way we don't have to staff it. They schedule the fields, they paint the lines, all the goals out there are owned by OISC. They built the shelter back before it burned down. They have the shed out there, they even have a mower out there, they mow it when they need to. So basically what ends up happening is all of these groups come to OISC to schedule their games, so that way they can paint the fields accordingly, line them accordingly. We have another larger group, for instance, in the area that does pull from outside of the city of Oshkosh, United Soccer. They pull residents from, Winnebago and Neenah Menashe area. And basically, they are also a large group that is looking to continue to play out in this area. And they also have the large Oshkosh on the Water tournament that happens in June. And then we have all the other groups in between. There's 8, 9, 10 groups. Whether it's there's an adult soccer league that actually takes all 4 fields one night. It's not like it's every night of the week, but one night for adult soccer. We have
just single teams from Amro, Winnebago that come out to play. Basically, we have a lot of different groups that are looking to come play out at the fields. And obviously, we want to try to provide as much opportunity as we can to the park. Did that answer?
No.
Okay.
You mentioned that some groups call and they say, hey, we want to play here. And I wanted you more to talk about that and losing out on opportunities here in Winnebago County with what we currently have.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things is even partnerships. So that United Soccer, for instance, who we've had to turn away the most, they've helped improve infrastructure out at the park. For instance, they added electrical outlets along, up by the shelter area here for plugging in food trucks. And so we're having to turn certain people away or certain groups away just simply because either the fields are too wet. That's one of the big common issues, which has been worked on over the years. They're overplayed, so we need to allow them to rest, or they simply are scheduled full. So we're having to turn a lot of those groups that are approaching us away instead of being able to partner with them to continue to enhance the park. So what we've been trying to do is work with the two bigger groups, which is OYSC and United, to work together so that way we can pool the resources to help, kind of like I talked about with rugby too, so we can continue to build the soccer complex. For instance, if they want a premier field, it would be this middle field with lights and bleachers and those types of things. I don't know if that helps answer your question or if you want to rephrase it a little.
Well, no, a little bit. I just, I made mention to some of the supervisors that, in my opinion, we've let this county park go as far as on that aspect of it, being out there, 4 or 5 times a week and traveling around the state, seeing other complexes around the state. So I guess I'm asking if you think this amount of money is going to be adequate to keep up with the times here.
Well, this amount will be adequate to do these 5 fields. Thanks for clarifying your question a little bit because, I do have a little bit more information to maybe continue with that. In 1993 was pretty much the last time that the soccer fields were touched from anything like we're looking to do now. Obviously, we aerate, we overseed, we actually, OIC fertilizes. We don't fertilize because budget-wise, we don't have the ability to fertilize. So we do a lot of this regular maintenance that we can. We add sand to the fields. But eventually the fields, just over time and how wet this park used to be especially, took a big toll on the fields. So no, to your point, obviously we're not going to be able to we're doing about a third. Now some of the other issues, these fields are very rough in terms of uneven. These fields down here tend to be wet more times than not. So we did take the biggest problem from what the 2 largest clubs, from the public survey, from what our park maintenance staff, that's why we're focusing on here. But these aren't very playable. These we're just proposing as future practice fields. They're not ready at all. And these ones tend to be very, very wet, and they're also very uneven. We don't have a lot of swales between fields. Notice usually when you go to a soccer park, you'll notice there's a crown on the field, the swale, then it starts going up towards the next field, and basically you have all these fields, and we don't have necessarily that. So this is a first step.
Thank you. I'd just like to make the point of this, our county park being an economic driver for the community, sustaining people in our community, recruiting people to our community, and just like I said, from my observations, we could be doing better as a county to making sure we're recruiting people. One more point I'd like to make, and it was foreign to me, but the rugby program that we have in the city of, or not in the city of Oshkosh, in the county, like you said, people are coming from all over. In fact, the tournament that's played there, I think a gentleman told me that there's folks from 26 states coming to our county park there and playing. So a growing sport. It had no idea how big of an impact that is on our community. So thank you for your work, Adam. Appreciate it. Take care.
Supervisor Hintz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the presentation. And since you brought up the rugby thing, Andy, I just want to touch on that real quick. Back when I was umpiring full-time, when we actually had 4 to 5 games a night, 4 to 5 nights a week on both diamonds, they were already playing rugby out there between the diamonds back in 2005, 2006. So the rugby thing out there has been a big thing for quite some time as far as them getting together out there.
which leads me to one of my questions, because I know that south diamond tends to be the wettest diamond. And that's the one you're going to use for the rugby field. Are you going to be raising that up for the rugby then? So that way it's going to, because I know there's a lot of water that flows across that. And the other thing is the scoreboard, the equipment and stuff from the scorer's booth. Are you giving that over to ORDs so that way they can have backups for the other one, or?
Yeah, we would definitely look to as much parts as we can reuse as backup, especially for the north diamond, or if there's any bulbs or that type of thing, we'd obviously try to repurpose as much as possible. Same with the lights for the field. They replace their own light bulbs, ORD does, so obviously saving all those types of things for them. And to your point, exactly. So the reason the rugby field you'll see in here is a little bit more expensive, but it's about $90,000 per soccer field, but the rugby one was a little bit more because, yes, we do have to raise it up. We do have the creek that's right there, which is an advantage, of course. We might have to put drain tile in under the field, but yes, that would be crowning the field appropriately so that the water does drain off.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Schellinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Adam, thanks for the presentation. This is all really exciting. To be thinking about the ways that our parks can be enhanced. So I want to start with the kayaks. Do you know how has that program gone for the city of Oshkosh?
So when I asked them, they were only about 2 to 3 months into it. I do know that other Kimberly and Little Chute up in the Appleton area, they were offering kayak rentals, and they've been still doing it for 3-4 years. It is more of an opportunity for residents to get out on the lake. It's not going to be a large money driver. The nice part is that it has very minimal maintenance, and it's obviously affordable for someone to get out on the lake. So it'll definitely create a little bit of operating revenue, but unfortunately with the city, it was about, when I called them in August, they had about 2 months of data, so not really enough to go off of from the city.
Okay. I think what feels off to me is the other things had a lot of like demand-based reasons for it, and this seems great, creating more access, the affordable access to the lakes, as you say. I think, all sounds great. I'd just be curious if there's, some compelling reason why the county needs even more. If you also said that, I think Menasha and Nina are maybe adding these as well. So if there's anything we can do to share on that. I want to ask about the soccer and rugby facilities and sort of like, what is the vision for these? And I think kind of, as the previous two supervisors stated, the idea of sort of like a premier facility, a place that would attract the best rugby tournament in Wisconsin, or the best soccer facility in the region. Where do you sort of see our facilities slotting there?
So,
or if we went ahead with all of these changes.
Yeah. So what the rugby specifically would do would it create 3 full. Well, so right now they have 2 full size and 1 that's not quite full size. So it would create 4 full size fields. So we'd be adding 1 additional field and making 1 full size. Right now, PicFest is their big tournament. That's the one that has people coming from other states. They have a waiting list for that. It was about a year before I started this field to the north. We did, and within a year they were already full again, and they had that waiting list. So with the rugby complex, the goal would be to create that concession stand venue, that 4-field complex, which we would probably add a little bit additional parking there, but parking for the most part, we just improved on that. And it would really create, just like I mentioned with even the pickleball when I kind of talked about that, and kind of even just what Supervisor Buck was mentioning, all of the items that we have in the park in terms of the disc golf, there's a disc golf tournament out there that brings people from around the county. There's the soccer tournaments. We have multiple soccer tournaments out there, and the fields are being used just even for regular games and practices. But it's bringing people into the county right off the highway, and that's what we see with the rugby. And the rugby group is one of the groups that I mentioned that already has a website, and they've been itching to get ready to try to get some donations in too. So they're one of the ones vested in wanting to try to take this investment and try to make it even more.
Yeah, okay. Thanks. I think this is like the rugby thing seems really great. I feel like maybe the soccer editions are aiming a little lower than what we really need. Having a facility that's jam-packed all the time, feels less good. I know I've been out there in the fall, and the fields need recovery. It's not so much fun to play in the fall. I guess I would be more curious to hear what sort of transforms the soccer complex into something that could sustain the organizations that are playing there now, as well as the sort of larger economic development opportunities that some of these more developed complexes are able to capture. Thanks.
Supervisor Burrow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to compliment you on the work, particularly around the long-term plan that you laid out. One thing I wanted to draw some attention to is we were talking earlier regarding priority-based budgeting, and one of the themes that came up was talking about community and economic development. So one thing I want to draw out in your parks goals, that people make decisions to live here sometimes based on what they see for parks. And I think this aligns very nicely with that. So I think there's great alignment. And to echo Supervisors Buck and Schellinger, there's the economic impact as it relates to the park itself, but there's the other portion, the restaurants, the hotels, but also from the perspective as Winnebago County is a place to live. And I think, again, a position as well. So, again, nice work on that. Thank you.
Supervisor Ellenberger.
Thank you, Chairman. Everybody seems to go to the one area that they know the most about, and I'm going to go to the pickleball courts because that's kind of my wheelhouse. So just some questions. I love what you said about how you're going to give the base, the template of what they need, and then the rest of it can be raised by whatever club or what have you, organization to come in. But then I have to ask the question, what does that mean for the 8 courts? Is that makes them all completely dedicated? Does that include the nets? Does that make them so that they're singled, or is that just one big vast area? I'm just asking if you can give me a little bit more on that.
Yeah, so the $400,000 that was budgeted in the final page when we were kind of taking into account an 8-court complex is basically, let's see, oh, okay. So this is the tennis courts down here. It would basically be taking a path down the middle, so you kind of have like a little alley, little middle lane between the the tennis and basketball courts. And then on this end, to the north, would be one fence line, and basically asphalt pickleball courts with nets. So there wasn't any lighting included in that. It is the courts. So kind of similar to the soccer and rugby. It's the playing surface. It's the ability to play. You do need a fence because otherwise you're going to be chasing balls. So that's a little bit more kind of like a baseball field. You need a fence. So basically it's what's needed. If pickleball wants lights, if they want wind protectors, if they want those types of things, that would be what would be looked at from a fundraising standpoint.
But no fences in between each court?
Not necessarily within that budget. Maybe it would allow for it depending on the climate. Construction's been fairly decent lately, but it just kind of depends once we're ready to go out to bid where it's at.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And once again, it's nice to see. I mean, you've put together a presentation that is impeccable. I can feel your passion when you do it. So I thank you very much for this.
Supervisor Bender.
Just a little input. I know when Rob tried to broker the deal with the city didn't want to take over a gravel trail that needs basically, the weeds got to be sprayed 2 or 3 times a year. Every 5 years you got to add gravel to it. They wanted a trail that was basically more or less maintenance free. Kind of like we did the T project. The town of Clayton didn't want to take that old portion of T over. We rebuilt it for them. We basically milled it and repaved it, and then they took it over. What advantage would be for the city to take over an old trail that basically needs continuous work? Kind of like Ken Robo Park. We had to buy a groomer to groom that trail because the weeds grow on it. We have to spray it twice a summer to keep the weeds out of it. It's getting smaller because the grass keeps growing into the trail. So if we want to broker this deal with the city, that's the conditions that they want. They don't want to take something on that they're going to spend money on for the next 15 or 20 years. And once they take it over, our cost is done. We don't have to spend any more money. So they're taking all the responsibility after we get it where they feel it's going to be maintenance free for at least probably 7 to 10 years.
All right, this presentation, I've got to ask you, is this with the blessing of the county executive, you bringing this in? All of it?
Yes, yep, this PowerPoint and presentation, is worked on with him too.
Okay. Not seeing any other questions, I thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Presentation. Next is Fox Valley Data Exchange and the benefits to the community, public health.
Good evening. I'm Doug Guerin, the Director of the Public Health Department. With me this evening is Jason Schulis. He's the Executive Director of the Fox Valley Data Exchange. We bring this presentation to you tonight really at the request of the Board of Health. The Fox Valley Data Exchange provides an opportunity for Winnebago County and the Tri-County area to pool data in a single place for access for the entire community. It's a resource that we don't have right now, and you'll be seeing a resolution for this at PNF in 2 days, and then it'll also appear on the County Board agenda on March 19th. And so I don't repeat a lot of what Jason has to say. I'll let him walk you through the slides, and we'll go from questions from there. Thank you.
Good morning, or actually good evening. So, I know it's been a long meeting. Okay, I'm not going to bore you with my bio, but I have been in the area for about 10 years. I've worked primarily in corporate, and I've done a lot of work in problem solving and in data. So as we started to build this up, I became the executive director of the Fox Valley Data Exchange. The Fox Valley Data Exchange was incorporated as a nonprofit last year, and we've applied for 501c3 status in September. And if you know nonprofits right now, it's taking about 9 months to get your certification. So we expect to get this about in May of this year. So we have our fiscal agent, which is the United Way in the Fox cities in Menasha. And we're in the development right now of a 3-year launch process. So the idea is we want to launch a 3-year program with a website that goes live ideally. Oh, I forgot that I got to do both of these because I'm not on the same one. Okay, sorry. With the live of the website going live in this first half of this year. We are hoping that will happen even in April. Oh, perfect. Great idea. Thank you. So, what is the need for the Fox Valley Data Exchange? So just a quick summary, but first of all, make it easy to find data that we need to make better decisions. So a lot of times I'm trying to make decisions both in nonprofits, in the community, and in business. And if you don't have the right data, it's really hard to make decisions. So someone said information superhighway. So we're trying to create this information superhighway for the community. Second thing is save money. So people scrounge for data. It takes time to access the data, time to get the data. So if we can put it all in one place and make it easy to find and easy to pull, that makes it a lot easier than the way that things are happening today. Get everybody on the same page. So we have a lot of people talking with different types of the same data, but it's a different data point. And so we want to make sure that we just get people to agree on what page they're on. And then keep the data current and integrate local data so that a lot of times the data that we're using might be 2, 3, 4 years old when the data is already out there. And so many times people have to go back, either pay somebody to do it and find it, and it takes a long time to do. We're trying to make that very seamless for our community. So the first thing about difficulty to find data, we went and did a little benchmarking. We found that it took about 27 full-time equivalent people to find data in our community when we looked at health, public health, businesses, and nonprofits and foundations. And so that was a back of the envelope, 27 people. We're trying to get that down to 2 full-time equivalents. We're not saying we're going to get rid of all 27 of the other sets of people, but I know that I've been contracted as a consultant to go find the same data that will be on this data exchange. And many times there are different companies, different organizations that actually do consult with different groups to try to find the same data that's already there. So one thing we can do is we can reduce consulting fees by creating a local data exchange to redeploy internal resources. So I know there are needs sometimes within the county, sometimes with foundations, sometimes with nonprofits, where we can help reduce their fees because this data will be available. The second thing is, if you look at the population of Oshkosh, and I just did a poll the other day, I could find 5 or 6 numbers just for the population of Oshkosh. So some of them are because they're different years, some of them are because they're different estimates. The point is, if we're gonna try to make improvement, we want to all use the same apples to apples approach instead of apples, oranges, and pineapples. So there's multiple ways to measure things. So we want to just get the community together to help make those decisions, so that we have one point of view and create the apples to apples approach. So the third thing is there's been something called the Fox Cities Life Study you may have heard of, and that was run out of the United Way of the Fox Cities. There also was a life study in Oshkosh several years ago, I think more than 10 years ago, that was also run out of the United Way here in Oshkosh. Data updates were costly, and so every time you needed to get a data improved, you'd call up somebody in Indiana, they'd say, we'll get you on the list, and we're going to charge you for each one of those pieces of data. We have a method that can get the automatic data updated within, when the census data was released, within a week or 2 weeks, all that data will be up to date, and you'll have all that data so that you don't have to wait for somebody to integrate that data in. Last updates on the life study are currently from 2020. There's more opportunities to incorporate local data, so we can take the data from the county, we can take the data from the city of Oshkosh, who's expressed interest of sharing data, data from New Mental Health, and we can put all that data together, integrate it, and show it off to the community. So we have more functionality than we would have here. When we did this, we engaged the community to say, what do you really want? We weren't trying to just find a problem, but we wanted to see what the problem was. So there were 44 organizations that had 2 community listening sessions from across basically Winnebago and Outagamie County. And we also benchmarked 32 different data exchanges across the United States. So we went to each one, tried to understand what they do, to really say, what do we need and what do we want for the community? And so what the community did is created this is what they asked for. So I can go through each of this if you'd like, line by line, or you can read it, but I'll give you just the highlights. One is people wanted the data, national data, community data, and local data. So they want data from different levels. And they want that data for the full Tri-County region was what was asked. So all of Winnebago, all of Outagamie, Calumet. Focusing on something called the vital conditions. I'll show you a little slide on the vital conditions, but it's a way to measure well-being, and it was used, it's being used nationally, it's used by the U.S. government, and I think it's the CDC that kind of rolled out the original vital conditions, but we've already used it, we have some practice with it, and we have some reputation around it already. Use other frameworks as the community wants, but then make it visual so that you have trends, demographics breakdown, slices and dices that you want, transparent, reliable, and clean. The other side says we want to make sure when we put data in, it's not garbage in, garbage out, so we want good data. We want to make sure it's clean, and so we have a team that's helped with that, that's volunteered to do that already, so that's great, and that team's engaged and wanting to continue. And we also, there was an ask for some analysis capability. So if people want some help with analysis or want to help, where do I find data? we can help guide people and train people so that they're used to it. What I'm going to show you is some quick things. Sorry that it's Chicago, but this is an example of the software that we're going to be providing using Chicago. Well, one, you can start seeing trends of median household income, and this shows trends actually by race. If you go to the next one, these are all other ways you can also look at this median income. So you just click here, click there, click there. You can look at it by city. You can look at it by census tract. You can look at it by zip code. You can look at it by county. You can also see it by race, ethnicity, between how is Winnebago County doing compared to the state. So are we seeing differences? Are we seeing improvements or abilities and places to go? You can rank things by zip code. You can rank them by census tract. So you can really start to pinpoint where are the problems or opportunities within the community. This just shows another, eviction rate is another thing that's already there. So we can look at that by census tract or by zip code or by city across all of Winnebago County. Another thing that I think was in the CHA plan or the community health improvement was community belonging by, in this case it's showing it by age. But we have belonging data that can be used already, and that'll be visualized and can be put right on to the website. Fox Valley Data Exchange is going to use the 7 vital conditions. I forgot this one had the little animation. So if you look at the part on the left, those are the 7 vital conditions, and people have said and have done the research that says that when you work on these things, you can improve the well-being of a community. And so we will be using that framework, and we're already getting an action and advisory committee together to help start putting the metrics in so that we can launch those on the website. The thing on the right just says there's different sources, and so we're going to integrate both national sources with state, county, and local databases in one website to make it easy for detailed analysis. Here's some impacts for Winnebago County. So by creating structures for local data, we can integrate with other Winnebago County data sets. So police and fire, housing, youth risk behavioral study, all that will be integrated into one, what we call a data dictionary or a data lake. And so that data dictionary and lake means that we can start to slice and dice the data from one data set to another to help create stories and help you make decisions that you need to make based on data. Also increase accessibility of data to everybody living. So this is a public website. So anybody in Winnebago County will be able to go in and do this slicing and dicing of the data. Support the current work burden of public health. So again, one thing is reducing consulting spend because there's data that needs to be acquired. The second one is deploying some of the internal resources that go get some of this data to do other value-added work in the county. It helps support community health assessments, and it also helps provide up-to-date data. So if you've seen the community health assessment report, I can already give you the updated data for all that, and you can see it online, live, as we go. So kind of being more proactive than reactive, because sometimes those reports are done every 5 years, and this allows you to get the data there. I'll give you 3 quick examples. So, I should have got a water bottle. That's the one thing. So 3 quick examples. One is Imagine Fox City's well-being survey. So in 2019 and 2021, there was a well-being survey that I was on the data team of Imagine Fox Cities, and I helped with Imagine Fox Cities. So we brought together people. We did 3,000 surveys in 2019, and then 2021 during the pandemic, we got another 2,700. It did include people from Oshkosh and included people from northern Winnebago County, but we still have all this data. So we took those surveys, we aligned them to the vital conditions. We did qualitative and quantitative analysis to start figuring out which ones, based on the survey data, which issues should we be focusing on. What came up was belonging and civic muscle and basic needs for health and safety out of all the 7 were the ones that correlated the most based on the data analysis that we did. So we will have that data analysis capability, not just making the website, but we have the back end capability to do that as well. So the intent is we want to run this survey across all 3 counties this year if we can, or else next year, so that we get this well-being information for everybody across all 3 counties. And it's an opportunity for Winnebago County to support refining that survey itself. We can add and subtract questions. We had a question about belonging last time because we found that belonging was correlated, so we added a question, and we use that to help see where and who might not feel like they belong to the area. Second example, I'll just show you out of Seattle. So one of the groups that we benchmark is in Seattle. They're developing dashboards also of their information, but they're using EMS data, so we could pull EMS data from the county, and they were looking at how to reduce the lag times between when they actually released the data and the incident that occurred. And what they were finding is most people knew about when somebody actually died, they had that information, but they didn't have the non-fatal information. So the non-fatal information creates a little more landscape to say, oh, a couple people got lucky, some didn't get lucky. Now we can see a better sense to where we need to focus. And they also could link that to the mental health data and the healthcare spending in the area to start seeing where there might be pockets and where there might be opportunities to focus the effort. So we can integrate data sources for Winnebago County to focus on whatever are your most important issues. Third one, coming out of Columbus, Ohio. So there's a data exchange there that was working on a regional housing strategy. They facilitated groups to look at the state of housing, identified the 5 core housing issues for their area. They made a nice dashboard. They kind of showed that data, and they developed a toolkit alongside that. So as the Fox Valley Data Exchange, we also have the facilitative capacity. We did that during COVID on those two things. We get those 44 groups together, and then we can also develop dashboards that are linked. And we also have connections with all the other data exchanges, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. If somebody's working on something, we can use what they've learned, we can try it, and we can also apply it into our area. This just shows that there's a community action advisory group under development. So we have 2 groups right now that are action advisory. So some of the other things that I've done in the community is really help get volunteers to do stuff so we don't have to spend money, extra money to do that. So we have a marketing and communications committee for this. That's a group of volunteers. And now we're launching a data structure and framework. So if you're nerdy about data, it's all about like how do you structure the data. If you want to try to figure out which things to measure, we have the frameworks. We're keeping them together because sometimes people want to measure things that you can't measure, so we want to make sure that we got the right group together. And it's about modeling indicators, developing this data dictionary with a blend of counties and stakeholders. So we have 5 people already committed to that. We have 5 additional stakeholder organizations committed. Our first meeting is, I think, going to be the 20th of March. So we're looking for more stakeholders to have an impact. If you know people who want to be part and play a part, make a difference, we will be happy to have them join. So what does this cost? It costs about $350,000 a year. The 3-year funding need then is $1.05 million. And when you say, well, what does it cost? How much does it cost? We're actually looking at the benchmarks from 10 years ago at what the average one of these costs. And so we're about 10 years behind, but we want to really learn first and make sure that with a 3-year launch, we can understand the impact that we're making and then have a chance to reflect to say, do we grow? Do we stay the same? Do we get smaller? What do we really need for our community? So we have committed, you can kind of see we've committed and raised funds from the Oshkosh Area Community Foundation, United Way, Lawrence University, Oshkosh Corp., the Community Foundation of Fox Valley, United Way Fox Cities, and Thrivent. We have others that are on there. I'm doing presentations like this to other areas, including Outagamie and Calumet County, and some other local foundations in healthcare. This just gives you a resource set of examples. You can click them. You can kind of see Metopio is the software that we, as a community, decided was the right one because it gave us the most flexibility and it also was the best cost benefit for the community. And so that just gives you some examples. And with that, I'll be happy to take any questions you have.
Supervisor Gustafson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm definitely struggling to see the actual application of this versus the data that's already out there via healthcare systems through Epic and kind of the information that they hold. This seems like a way for the taxpayers to fund data sets that private entities, I guess, already have their hands on. So can you at least elaborate a little bit what gap you're trying to fill here of data that's already out there compared to, I guess, what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, if you look today, it's really hard to get, first of all these different data sets and sources. And so you can go to the census today and try to pull that, and it's not very easy at all. And so people go and hire consultants to go say, I want this one, not that one. And so this will all be in one place. That's the first thing. So you don't have to go hunting and pecking for the data. Second thing is there are groups that have data that doesn't get shared broadly. And so the new mental health data, they have some data, they can bring that and integrate it alongside all the other data, stick it on in the census tract where they don't have that today. So you can start to say, oh, look, we have this issue with suicide ideation, and it's between 18 to 24, and you can see where on the location that is in the community.
So are you relatively building your own like large language model to almost, it almost sounds like you're trying to compile all this data to make your own AI in a certain extent in a way.
It's not AI at this point.
Well, that's a shame, because I think that's where, I think the price point that you're asking for, without even mentioning any sort of generative AI use, seems a little, again, kind of like I said, 10 years behind. So
yeah,
that's in general how I'm seeing this entire presentation, is it's behind on what is already here. And I think it needs to be updated in a way that is going to be more impactful and more cost efficient. So.
Okay. Did you want to talk a little bit about the benefits?
Yeah, I first reiterate that we spend an enormous amount of time, like when we put together a community health needs assessment, tracking down data, finding the data, pulling it together. We really want to spend our time reviewing the data, analyzing the data, interpreting the data, reporting that data out, trying to solve community problems with it. It would drastically reduce the burden and time needed. It's taken us, so we just soft launched the community health needs assessment on the health department website. It took months to compile that data and pull it from sources. And if you look at the end of the report, you can see a very long list of references. The goal here is to pull all that data into one place, make it easy to see, make it transparent for the community. You as county board supervisors may have an issue that you want to see improvement on. You've actually got a place to go and see what data is available on that and how it's trending over time. You want to launch a new initiative, you can hopefully see impacts on the dashboard over time rather than waiting for some point in the future or pulling that data later. We really want to see more closer to real-time data for our community, and we want to be able to pull data together. I mean, think about even like basic police and crime data. We have 7 different police agencies in Winnebago County. Wouldn't it be great to be able to see that data all in one place for the entire county at one time instead of going to 7 different agencies and asking for their information? Part of this will be, identifying data sources, entering it to data agreements so that data continuously flows in to the system so that you can look at it in real time or whenever that data is updated. So there really are a lot of benefits. The platform itself, as Jason mentioned, it takes all the work out for uploading all of that census tract data, any of the federal data sets that are there, those estimates that are automatically in the system. We don't have to do that work every single time a new data set comes out. It's already done for you. And then you have the comparables to the local data, to the state data, to the national data. And it just gives you more information to make better decisions. And so there's really an efficiency in this. As Jason mentioned, they tracked down 27 FTE of people time just pulling data together. That's going on. And we're a part of that. We have 5 health departments in the Tri-County area. We all do community health needs assessments. We have 4 hospital systems. They do community needs assessments for every single hospital in our area. We are working on partnerships with them to try to have a more regional approach to data and then to have a more regional approach to what are our community priorities. How do we use that data to identify what the best opportunities are for us to pool our resources, to have collective impact, to work strategically together on critical issues so that we can actually move the needle on them instead of, everybody's doing something different.
Supervisor Burrow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two things I will be looking for. One page, it's not numbered here, talks about impacts and consulting costs. We talk about the full-time equivalent. Again, I could see this being an ongoing addition to our budget. And again, coming from private industry, I'd say, where are the cost reductions coming from? Are we going to budget the cost reductions too? Not just assume the additional cost, but are we going to have less consulting costs in our budget? Are we going to reduce the number of full-time employees accordingly to make up for it? Because it is an additional spend. So that's something I'll be looking for the future. I do have one specific question to the presentation too. $1.5 million or $350,000 a year. How much? Where's that money going? Is that primarily salaries? Where's that money go? Towards what?
Yeah, it goes towards salary and software primarily.
Salaries and software. Yep. And what portions is salaries?
I think it was, I'm trying to think for the year, the total was, I think, 600 some thousand. So.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Supervisor Swan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The 350,000 NNIP costs, is that a cost to Winnebago County specifically?
350 is for the entire,
okay, and
the entire data exchange across all three counties.
Would it be shared with the other two counties here then?
Yes.
So we'd only have a third of that?
Well, you could say it's, if you look at it by population.
Okay, roughly.
But Calumet's pretty small. But
all right, so, and could you, NNIP, what does that stand for?
It's the National Neighborhood Indicator Partnership.
Okay.
So it tends to work at the neighborhood level, but it works across a whole bunch of different, there's a whole bunch of different data exchanges that are doing that work.
Will this data be available to the general public?
Yes.
Free?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Falom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Jason, for your presentation today. A couple things that I see with this, some of the first things that come to mind are in terms of the overall cost, and I have two questions here. Do you have any estimate of what the revised 2024 costs would be as opposed to the 2014 costs?
The revised?
The revised budget line item. I mean, are we going to go with 350,000 or are we going to?
Yeah,
okay.
so my point was we looked at the benchmark from 10 years ago to set our budget.
Okay.
And we're keeping the budget flat over 3 years.
Okay. And then just to follow up on that, does that, and Director Guerin, please feel free to jump in if you'd like to, do you plan to have that come in the public health budget, or is this going to be a request for ARPA funds?
So this, the ask is for 300,000, and the 300,000 is really a part of the 3-year implementation and launch.
Okay.
Okay. It's really just it's infrastructure investment essentially to get this off the ground. And then for it to start to be shared with the community and for us to start using it. The 300,000 and so this did come to ARPA. It did not advance from the ARPA committee to the county board. And so some of you may have heard some of this before. Most of you probably haven't because it just was never advanced from the ARPA commission. When it wasn't advanced from the ARPA commission, Board of Health noted right away that, hey, this is really a good opportunity for us to start being more strategic about our data collection, more efficient with our data collection, and actually allow us to work with data more than spending time just collecting data. I met with the county executive as well on this, definitely in support. We discussed what the funding source could or should be. Ultimately, we agreed to pull it from the Public Health Reserve Fund and not the general fund. It does serve public health to great capacity. It serves healthcare to great capacity. And there are other benefactors in the community from this, including residents and yourself. And because of that, we decided let's go ahead and use Public Health Reserve Fund for that. Public Health Reserve Fund hasn't been settled for last year's budget, but was about 2.5 million prior to the settling of the 2023 budget. It'll be a little bit less than that, but over 2 million for moving into 2024.
Okay. And then just to kind of close, one of the things that I've been harping on is knocking down silos between departments, between agencies, between, governing organizations. And one of the things that I would like to see if this county board does decide to go ahead and do this is to really hone in on the opioid overdose statistics and putting some sort of trend analysis and regression so that we can have a clearer picture of what's been happening instead of just, the graph that we've been using for the past few years that the medical examiners put together. That's one advantage I do actually see in this. So moving forward, if this board does decide to approve this, that's something I would like you guys to focus on because we're losing too many people. And if we want to take an analytical approach, I would also like to echo Supervisor Gustafson's concerns about AI. If there's any sort of AI tool we can implement to help us analyze the data quicker, because you can have a lot of data at your fingertips, but if you don't have a means to analyze it, it can be a bit of a shortfall. So if that's something, if this board is going to go ahead, I would like to see you guys focus on that, and I'd like to thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Supervisor Stafford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much for the presentation. So some of the questions I had were already addressed, so I'm not going to ask those. But I do have several, if you don't mind. This is fantastic. I'm a data guy. I love data. So this is great. I do have a couple of questions. When we think about data aggregators, some of the issues you find is when you bring multiple sources of data in, it's hard to actually discern the different sources and the different time periods, different sample sizes. How are you going to accommodate that kind of thing so we don't have a data aggregation with different sample sizes and statistical significances and time frames and coming in with something that's not actually actionable?
Right. So the first thing is on the website itself, all sources are are put in there with their confidence intervals and so on and so forth. So that's all that data is governed and validated. The framework and action group that is coming up, it's a bunch of data nerds, let's call them. So people from Lawrence University, a CIO of a large company. So we got the people that we need to make sure that we have the data integrity that we want, and that data integrity of the local data will also be described with the same sources and confidence intervals.
Right, because the data integrity is what I was getting at, right? Yeah, and that's so critical. Two other questions. I just want to confirm this will include crime statistics and drug use statistics as a part of the data aggregation set?
So we will incorporate as much local data as we can. In putting this together, we have not already secured local data agreements. Our intent is to certainly pursue any publicly available information and then also pursue additional information that may not just get published. I mean, the opioid example was one. Mm-hmm. I mean, the coroner has statistics on, on overdose deaths, but have we mapped those out? I mean, have we taken where those overdoses occurred and actually plotted them out and to see where they are? Same thing with, overdose responses from EMS. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's data that we can plot on a map and compare to other data, other perhaps relevant or adjacent statistics that we can see alongside one another over time. And so the intent is, yes, to do that, but we do need to, we'll need to secure data agreements for data that's not already publicly available or subject to open records.
And will we have that visibility prior to the resolution coming forward on agreeing to spend this amount of money?
We won't have local data agreements in place until the product actually launches. And so this funding is critical to help get to a point where software can be purchased and those agreements can be made. I mean, it'll take a little time. So that's why this is a 3-year project. We're not going to be able to curate, 150 different sources mm-hmm. of local data, in a week or two. It'll take time, and this will build over that time period.
But in the project scope, this is going to be included in the criteria?
Yeah, we have the 7 vital conditions is a framework we're using, but that's not the only set of data. But we're first going to be taking the 7 vital conditions with the Action Advisory Committee and deciding which things to turn on and which things we want to add that are local.
Okay. So, and then just really quick, you showed some examples of Chicago, right? And you just used a simple map. Will we be able to get data tables and do some sort of basic analysis, like cross-tab analyses, basic descriptive statistics, items like that, regression, or is that beyond the scope of this specific?
So anything that's on the website can be downloaded into an XML file.
Oh, perfect.
So you can play with it.
And then I can put it right into SPSS or
yes,
Minitab.
You can do whatever you want. And so on our
Okay.
back end, we're using Microsoft BI.
Oh, okay.
As a way to do that, which doesn't, maybe it now has an AI in there, but we were doing qualitative analysis correlation with Microsoft BI.
Okay. And then just one other question, and actually more for Director Giernan, if you don't mind. We also have, to Supervisor Flom's comment about silos, we have GIS planning, and they tend to do a lot of data analysis for the county. And we also have the IT, which I understand it's more infrastructure. But have you spoken to any of these departments as a part of the process here with this recommendation?
Yeah, so as part of some of the pre-work on this, actually just today I reached out to more. I sent another email out to all department heads with a copy of this presentation, with just a little background information about what this is, asking all of them to provide feedback on, what are some potential benefits for them? Are there any pitfalls or challenges that they might have? We're certainly not trying to duplicate like what our GIS department can do, and that's part of the significance of the data download, is that we want, if we're pooling all this data into one place, we want our GIS folks to be able to go and grab the data they want and pull it down. The local data is really the function of this. I mean, this will work because we have local data so that we can make local decisions. Having the state data and national data is great for comparative analysis and kind of seeing how we're doing compared to other communities, but the local data is the most exciting part of this.
Great, thank you.
Supervisor Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Supervisor Gustafson, Flown, and Stafford addressed many of the things that I wanted, so I'm going to go to mostly just fiscally. First and foremost, why did the ARPA fund, or excuse me, the ARPA Spirit Fund Commission reject this?
I can give you my perspective on that. So we have improved our PowerPoint to help describe what we were trying to do. Most of the ARPA funds before us in the thing were all assets and physical assets. And so we were the first non-physical asset to come in front of the subboard. We were one of the 7, I think there were 7 original approved by the community that did the due diligence coming up to the board. And so it was the board that actually, the subboard, I don't know what that board is, the Spirit Board, I think. It was the Spirit Board that didn't understand kind of the presentation. So we went and did a little bit of powwowing to help understand, to make it a little clearer, give a little bit more of use cases and studies and benefits.
Okay, I'm also looking, having done a lot of fundraising, I'm looking at what you have raised, and that looks to be about 25%. Committed a little bit more, but who knows if that's actually going to happen. And I'm looking, of course, at the funding gap. It's supposed to be tri-county, so what if Winnebago County commits $300,000 and Outagamie or Calumet do not, either in tandem or just one? Then what?
Well, if you look at the two greens are things that, some of those are multi-year commitments. And so the committed 205 is kind of what has been given already to the data exchange. The 250 is what's coming in the next upcoming years, because some are multi-year grants. So that's what that is. So we're about, my board says I need to be halfway to launch. And so I'm at, in this 455.5, and I need 525.5 to launch, because I got a 3-year run rate to launch that.
Out of the 1 million, you said it was going to be around 600,000 for staff or personnel. How many personnel does that mean?
It's about 2 FTEs as a whole.
2 people for
2 full-time
600,000 or
equivalent.
plus?
And that's for 3 years. And that's fully burdened. So.
Thank you.
Supervisor Nussbaum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This reminds me a lot of China and Big Brother, and the fact that Seattle and Chicago are doing this, which are probably two of the worst cities in this country. I don't think we want to be like them.
Supervisor Challenger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, so I want to ask about your governance structures. You mentioned you have a board.
Yep.
And then you have this other, what were you calling it, advisory
We have
council?
action advisory committees because they're not just advisory committees.
Action advisory.
Action and advisory committees.
So those are your two sort of governance structures? Yep. Okay.
Yep.
And how are you constructing those two, the board of directors and the action advisory council?
Yep. So we have a set of stakeholders, everything from public health to healthcare to foundations to nonprofits. So we're looking at a blend of those across the 3 counties. So in both cases. So currently we have a board of 4. We're going to our annual meeting in May, and so we're moving up to a board of 7. And the goal is to kind of create this cross-functional matrix across the 3 counties.
Okay. And then, okay, so I think I've heard both that the objective is to aggregate data that already exists, but are you also hoping to generate data sets?
At the moment, we're not planning to create primary data sets except for potentially this Imagine Fox Cities well-being survey that will now extend, so that'll be a new set of primary data. But even that, yeah, so I'd say that would be the primary data, primarily unless we would contract from a project perspective to do primary data, we wouldn't go to primary data analysis. We'd be aggregating local data.
Okay. And, okay, so I imagine if you pull data from the 7 different law enforcement agencies in Winnebago County, you're going to find that they're reporting things
differently,
not exactly apples to apples, right? Is part of the intention to hope to create some alignment on commonly reported?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I mean the idea is that we develop a data dictionary that allows you interoperability between data sets, and so we have a person who's done that for years at Kimberly-Clark, who's part of the team.
Okay, and then in other examples of these data exchanges, is that something that they've been able to successfully garner buy-in for, so that these different agencies are, whether it's law enforcement or healthcare or whatever else, reporting sort of apples to apples?
Yes, they've done that before, and we've got some experience from others.
I imagine that's like one of the big challenges of the public health work, for example, is pulling what does this municipality report, that municipality, and trying to figure out how do those things kind of fit together. And so that's what you see. Kind of
I mean,
stitching.
when we did the Imagine Fox Cities, the race categories were different from one year to another, so we had to kind of develop a set of assumptions if you want to make interoperability. That was within the same data set, but yes. The goal is, to say, okay, which assumption are we using for population 3 counties? Let's use the same number for the same source, let's say, for each one of those.
So I think that's a really good example that when you're talking about those 27 FTEs around the Tri-County area, those are some, like, there might be multiple agencies that were doing the exact same thing, right? Like
Correct.
saying, these were the race data in 2019, this is the race data in 2021, and making that.
Correct.
And lots of, okay.
Correct.
Last question, with the data that's like being shared across multiple agencies, or being actually, I guess at this point, gathered by different agencies, are there issues with the way it's being interpreted, or just the way that it's being compiled or accessed? Or is it all of that?
I think it's a little bit of everything. What I would say is that our goal is to help when we did the minimal viable product, which is what we want to launch because that's what the community asked for, light on the analysis. They did not want a big analysis group. That said, we have the capacity, capability, and I've do a fair amount of getting volunteers to do things. So I have a whole set of like data analysis people that want to help. And so part of it is just leveraging the skills of the community without having to pay them to have a higher cost.
Okay, so if we get a phone call from you, chances are you're going to be asking us to volunteer for something.
Yeah, if you want to volunteer, we'll be happy to.
Thank you. I appreciate you being here tonight.
Supervisor Gustafson, your second chance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I want to thank all the nerds on the board for asking great questions on this. The other question I had, I just want to clarify, you have your 7 vital condition framework. Do you elaborate further on that somewhere, like on a website, of what each of those tenets actually represent?
Yeah, if we go back to this one in the corner here.
Yeah.
Yes, I can get you a link if you want to the 7 vital condition framework itself. We've been collaborating with them, and so Imagine Fox Cities actually gets national attention because it used this framework that we used, and now we're going to extend this framework out to all 3 counties, which will give us more attention as being leading edge on doing this work, which is actually coming from, I think the government has used this as a model instead of social determinants of health. And so they've been rolling that out as they go. So I can get you the link.
That'd be awesome. And then the last question I had that I thought about was, you are collecting data, and some of it is going to be from actual constituents in the area. What are you doing to ensure their privacy as you collect that data, and ensuring that information isn't being linked back to them or any sort of way that could be used nefariously?
Yeah, we did 2 things. I'll give you just the Imagine Fox Cities because that was the data team, one of the data teams I've been involved in. One, it's a survey, and the survey was anonymous. So the first year it was not anonymous. You could put your email in there, but we scraped all that off. The second one is we don't put any data in if you can be discoverable. So if you go to the Imagine Fox Cities website and you get down and it's like 3 people in a subset, you're not going to get any data for it. So we follow the rules for that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Supervisor Ellenberger.
Thank you, Chairman. I like the presentation a lot. I like the fact that you're giving us, this is a nice place to come in to get data, because I've asked for data in the past, especially with like the vending machine thing. I wanted more data. I didn't want to know how many units have been used. I want to know, like, for example, we brought up the overdose data. I can't remember who brought that up. It might have been Stafford. But to know where those hot spots are and so forth on a map, that's the kind of data that I was looking for when we were talking about past things. Now, with that, you mentioned that, I would hope that the Sheriff's Department already had that information. So this is basically, as I'm seeing this, you're taking stuff from the Sheriff's Department. You're taking things from wherever, and you're bringing it all into one spot, so it's just easier to make decisions. That's how I'm viewing this. Now, secondly, I'm going to go back to the money part, because I'm confused. I'm very confused with the money issue. It says committed and raised. So these are the organizations, local organizations that have donated funds towards this? Okay.
Correct.
And you said that the amount that they've donated is around $250,000, correct? Sorry, I have to get my glasses.
They have committed $455,500, of which $205,000 has already been handed to the Fox Valley Data Exchange.
Okay, and that is subtracted from the 1.05?
Yeah. So,
right?
so the 594 is what's left to raise.
I need like a spreadsheet to show, because I'm just seeing numbers and I'm not seeing. I mean, I know you went over it, but I need a spreadsheet to see that. I need to see. These people gave this much. This is what we're going to be on the hook for. This is what you're going to be asking for from other counties, because it's a tri-county venture, so to speak. So I need to see something like that. If you can get that to us, that would be really appreciative. I mean, that's just me. I like to see the money part of it. If you can, I would really appreciate that. Other than that, I appreciate the work that you've done for this, and I understand it. And once again, I like to base my decisions on data that's actual concrete. And I understand that it's out there. It's just bringing it all together to do it. Thank you.
Supervisor Eisen.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could you tell us if the data exchange is a nonprofit organization?
Yes, it has a 501c3 application in, and we expect to get the certification by May.
Oh, it's pending. Thank you.
Yep.
Who is eligible to receive data from this system? Could I, as an individual?
Yeah. When we launch the website, anybody will be able to see this data.
Is there a cost for retrieving data from the system?
There is no cost once it is launched. The cost is getting the data out there and integrating it in, so that's why we're having a launch process. But there's no cost for people to use this data. It's a common good for the community.
So once the system is established and in place, I could access the system from my desktop computer, and I can retrieve data gathered from the 3 counties and other committed organizations that have
Shared their data.
volunteered
Yep.
their data?
Yes.
Thank you.
Supervisor Flom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and apologies if I didn't touch on this earlier. The items that you have listed out here are mostly socioeconomic data. One of the questions that I do have, since we're not Epic and we're not some of the other, healthcare data amalgamators, are we going to run into any HIPAA protections that may prevent us from accessing public health data, such as, potential overdoses that are not publicized? One of the things that I'd love for us to get into, if we can, from a legal perspective, is non-fatal overdoses, just to see how effective we're actually being at this. So do you foresee any roadblocks in terms of HIPAA protections that we may run into, given that this is going to be publicly available? Or is this something that has been addressed in other means and we should be fine?
I don't know if you want to answer, but I can answer too. Yep, so, HIPAA compliant, we don't want to link any person to any particular, health information data. And so even in the data that we work with now at the health department, when we report out communicable disease information, I mean, there is no identifiable factors with that. We already, if we have a small number of individuals to report, we don't report it because we don't want to have anything identifiable. Any data that we would pull from, from healthcare, ER data, health system data, that data is all scrubbed of any personally identifiable information. And then on this website, you'll be looking at data at the census tract level. So you won't be able to see a particular, location tied to any particular event. It'll just be the entire census tract. So no issues that we're aware of right now.
Okay, I appreciate that. And then the last thing I'd like to see in the future is some of the opportunity cost exchanges in regards to what we're getting for this in terms of, how much we're saving in the long run. I know the county clerk had something about the agenda prep software with that. So if that could be provided, I'd very much appreciate it. And thank you very much for your time and presentation. Thanks.
Supervisor Swan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just had a few additional questions. You mentioned qualitative analysis and qualitative inputs that you're using in this. I would assume then you look at the quantitative data first and then you make a qualitative adjustment. You have a process used for qualitative analysis?
Yeah, for qualitative?
Yeah, you said you have qualitative inputs.
Yeah, what we did is we did a correlation analysis between open-ended answers of data and other. We were trying to match themes to other data, and so we did basically a compare analysis between what was open-ended.
The inputs that you use, are they, will the public have confidence that they're objective that the qualitative analysis process is objective, will we be able to view the analysis process and the measuring tool that you used?
Sure. I mean, we did most of this in Microsoft BI,
Okay.
and we actually had people from Lawrence University, who are statistics professors,
Right.
check to see whether they did their own like hand analysis to check to see if Microsoft BI was legit in their analysis, and they were.
That's good.
So,
Okay.
So we used that.
And then the primary data, you said you weren't going to be researching primary data at all. If you're trying to do if your objective of this program is to correlate, local data, I would think some primary data analysis would be the most valuable aspect of something like this.
Yeah, so we don't plan unless contracted, and that wasn't in our minimal viable product to collect primary data. But
Right.
we've talked to Calumet County, for example, and they're like, South Calumet County doesn't have a lot of data, and so we just talked about, what kind of primary data analysis might be possible to do with them.
Right.
Yeah, and I just want to mention, I mean, there's a difference between primary data collection,
right,
and then conducting data analysis. So so when we say primary data, that means we're collecting it. We're running the survey. We're pulling that data. Versus right now we're collecting data from other organizations, and that's called secondary data.
Yeah, I know that. But I mean, the primary data, has more validity a lot of times than the secondary data from outside agencies that is compiled for this area, right? I mean.
There's definitely opportunity, an interest in primary data. We've done that in the past as part of our community health needs assessments. It's very expensive.
I know.
It's very time consuming.
Yeah.
As we pull that secondary data together, we'll hopefully see where the best opportunities are for primary data, and hopefully we can work with other partners to collect that data. This right now is a data warehouse, it's not a research.
Okay, well, at least you understand the need, and maybe you can get the whole collective organization to work together to do some of that. Thanks.
Yeah, one of the plans is to work on, when you think of the demographic survey data, is to try to get the community to use the same questions, so that then it's very interoperable once the data is collected, and we can use it in ways that makes it easier to slice and dice.
Yeah, I just hope that, that you can get these two things, that we have access to it, we understand the process, we can view it as a public to make sure that we feel it's objective. Thank you.
Supervisor Bureau.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two things. I want to ask a general question for us to all to ponder. Getting data costs money, and where's the cost benefit of it? And the other thing I was going to ask for next time we speak on this is you've networked with a number of different stakeholders in the community, and I found it rather interesting that the healthcare system hasn't contributed yet to the fundraising, and that concerns me. The people we would think have a vested interest in public health, and I'm concerned that the county is looked at as we got to carry the load ourselves. There's a lot of other organizations here that I think could carry part of it. Are they seeing value? And that's a bottom line question I have. Because if they are, they should be putting money up towards it. And that's a concern I have. Thank you.
Supervisor Haran.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got a couple of questions. Doug, specifically for you, you put together what, a 70-page collection of data giving us information as to the various subjects that you have to address for just the county or for this county and the state?
So where we can, we collect local data, and then we try to compare it for reference to state and national data if it's available. And so yes, I mean we are required, by state code to do a community health needs assessment and a community health improvement plan at least every 5 years. Hospitals are required to do a very similar process to maintain their nonprofit status. They're required by the IRS to do a similar process about every 3 years. And so we're actually working together to try to have that process be joint, to find some efficiencies in collecting the data, to work together to identify community priorities so that we're saying the same thing across the Tri-County area. You know, another big benefit of the data, the report, and then, you know, making you know, those decisions about what priorities are, or see what emerges from that, are that we can align those priorities, and then you know, if we can work on those together, funders really appreciate that information too, because it helps them prioritize where to put their funds within the community as well. So, you know, if for instance, you know, you pick any topic, you know, I mean, a couple we've talked about recently are, you know, housing continuum, homelessness, or childcare. You know, if that's a priority for us as a community over the next 3 years, you know, our funders look to that and say, okay, how can we be a part of that, and how can we direct our funds to have really a meaningful impact on that issue in, you know, let's say the 3-year time frame. And so it's a really, the data helps us identify priorities, it helps us make decisions, and it also helps guide investments. And we really want results. The whole point of collecting the data is, you know, is to hopefully have a meaningful impact in the areas that we need to, and to be able to measure that we actually did have an impact. Because if we didn't, then we need to change our strategy. We need to know what we're doing works.
Okay, no, you can't go away yet. I want to say that over the course of the last 2-3 months, we have done a great deal of educating each other. And I appreciate very much you speaking in my language. Next question is, how much time is required of your staff to pull that information together, and how much time would be saved specifically by your staff with this resource?
Sure. I'd have to pull numbers, but, you know, given the investment of, you know, our public health planner, her supervisor, my time, our epidemiologist's time, I mean, we probably have well over an FTE, you know, maybe even 2 collectively as a department in putting all that data together. It's, you know, one, it's finding it, it's collecting it, it's putting it in a format that is readable and understandable, and it's also interpreting that data or telling the story behind that data so it actually means something. And so it's a very time-consuming process, which is why we're looking for efficiencies, because we really want to work with the data and tell stories with the data and identify opportunities with the data instead of just trying to find the data. And it just pulls away resource from what we could do with it. And we have opportunities working, you know, collectively across the Tri-County area with 5 health departments and 4 healthcare systems to consolidate those reports into something, you know, more singular for an entire region.
Last question is, you used the term investment. When I think investment, I think about our retirement fund and how those monies are invested and how my husband and I are going to utilize those investments. When you use that term, what are you saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for me, this is an investment, you know, in our data infrastructure. It's an investment that allows people to make good decisions with good data. It saves them money in the effort to try to collect all that data and try to merge that data together. There's lots of duplication of data collection and analysis that's occurring right now. And, you know, we can save the community collectively money and show them data they've never even seen before, and make that data available to you as county board supervisors, to individuals as residents that, you know, have an interest in an issue and want to follow that.
So you visualize this concept as being something that an individual can use, that healthcare can use, that human services can use, that the sheriff's department can use, that the highway department essentially or potentially could use. This is not something which is solely isolated to the health department.
No, it's not. I mean, we have clear benefit from it, but yes, we're hoping that the more you put in, right, the more local data we can get, and put in the system, the more we're going to get out of it. And having, you know, having that data repeatedly entered over time and trending it will provide information and feedback back to those of us that are putting it in.
There is a gentleman called Thomas Sowell, who I believe is about 93, 94 years old today, who is one of our top economists, and one of his statements is, data is where it's at. Now, what we have to do is make good conclusions from the data so that we proceed in an advantageous way for our community.
Supervisor Hanson.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to echo Supervisor Barreau mentioned something that I picked up on as well. I was curious why in Ascension, Aurora, ThedaCare, Walgreens, CVS, Kroger might not have invested in this, because they could definitely benefit. And the answer might simply be because they can't. But I am really cautious about maintaining the privacy, especially if there is a breach. I'm not sure that was adequately addressed. I'm not exactly sure the ask of the $300,000, just exactly what we're getting on the return of investment. But lastly, I'm going to go back to the ask of the funding gap is $594, and the ask to Winnebago County is a little bit more than half of that. What are the other two counties contributing, and what if they don't? Why are we taking 50% or slightly more than 50% of this funding gap?
So the first thing, there are asks out to the healthcare, and there are members that are on the Action Advisory Committee. So they are committed to working forward on this, and so we're still working with the healthcare, especially as they're trying to combine their CHIP-CHOP plans, and some of the healthcare are going through some organizational changes. There's a whole bunch of things related to that. So that's kind of the healthcare thing. So we are working with healthcare. There are asks. There's an ask out to Calumet. There has been an ask out to Outagamie as well.
And if they don't
and the city of Oshkosh as well.
If they don't contribute, what happens to our $300,000?
If they don't contribute, then I thank you profusely for your $300,000.
But then does that mean that the system doesn't go forward because there's a lack of funding?
I can launch when I hit the 525, and then I have to continue to raise till I get the 105 million, which is what most executive directors have to do in nonprofit, and I'm learning this process. It's my first executive directorship, given that I've been in business for 30-some years.
Okay, I thank you for your presentation very much. A lot of good questions.
Thank you.
So moving on, we have a resolution that got missed for the last meeting when we had them all. Our fault, it was just missed, and so there's no special reason why this is on other than it's, you might as well say, a make-up resolution. It's Resolution 314-03-2024, approving $387,500 from the Spirit Fund's Government Identified Community Project category to fund the south leg of a two-lane roundabout, the intersection of Leonard Point Road and State Highway 21 in the town of Algoma. Supervisor Buck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for approval of resolution number 314-03-2024.
That's seconded by Supervisor Gordon.
Yep, 3-4.
Any discussion? Not seeing any oops. Supervisor Buck.
What was it? Last Saturday, leaving a friend's house, happened to have my son in the car and crossed Highway 21, going through the Leonard's Point, hoping at some point would be a roundabout here, and just thinking about my two kids, and thinking that my daughter didn't have her license going through that roundabout, or going through that intersection at night. It's not well lit. We have an opportunity to do something for everybody in this county in an intersection that's dangerous, and somebody just lost their life not too long ago. So I just ask for the supervisor's support on this. Thank you very much.
There's been many lives lost there just within the last, I'll even say, year. right in that area, so that's a dangerous path. Any other discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Carried, 1 nay. Supervisor Albrecht.
I move to adjourn.
Second. Motion made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Adjourned.